Good evening, America. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Worldwide Wednesdays. Today's stream will consist of actually not as much bad news as it has in the past, thankfully. There is obviously a lot of bad news to be shared, but there's also a lot of good, encouraging news. For instance, Colombia is striking back against Donald Trump and his aggression, and not to mention murdering of Colombian citizens and their fishing boats. We also have some good news that Germany is not, at least, falling directly into the hands of fascism again. They're at the very least looking at the MAGA party of Germany, the Alternative für Deutschland, and looking at them as the fascist Nazi scum that they are. So, there is good news to be had, but there's also the bad news, which is, of course, our aggression continues to escalate, and Israel has violated the ceasefire 80 times since October 10th. So, lot to cover. Some of it bad, some of it good for a change. So with that being said, good evening, Ana La Diosa, and everyone else who's watching, and let's jump into the stream. So, like I said, starting with good news. French ex-president Nicolas Sarkozy goes to Yale. Once it, decides to load. Which is odd, because I shouldn't be having internet issues.
Hello, I'm Geeta Gurmeet.
Did Amazon collapse again? Is it, or is it just me?
Thanks for being with us. The former president of France, Nicolas Sarkozy, has arrived at La Santé prison in Paris, where he'll serve a 5-year sentence for conspiring to raise election funds from Libya. Mr. Sarkozy, who was the president of...
What really gets me about all of these politicians that finally get some jail time and actually are held accountable, what's with these baby jail sentences? Like, fine, he's going to an actual prison, so that's good. At least it's not house arrest. But, 5 years for election fraud, right? For fundraising fraud. Which, again, I thought most other countries had public elections, as in publicly funded elections. And yet, it seems that is also not the case. Once again, capitalism is infesting all parts of the world, not just America. But hey, let's hear some more about this.
France between 2007 and 2012 left his home alongside his wife, Carla Bruni, and was seen waving at his supporters as he was driven to the prison. He's consistently denied wrongdoing and is appealing. The former head of state, who's 70, will be placed in the isolation section of the prison. Let's go live to our correspondent, Hugh Schofield,
okay, now we're talking. Getting put into the hole. Getting put into, what's the, official terms for it? It's, they call it the isolation chamber, but, there's gotta be... dang it, it's on the tip of my tongue. Dang it, why can't I not think of it right now? It's funny because my dad retired from the Department of Corrections, so you would think I know it, but the problem is he kept calling it all the little nicknames that they had for it. So, we'll just go with isolation chamber.
In Paris, we saw those images, Hugh, and former President Sarkozy continues to protest his innocence.
Okay, before he answers, whatever's going on with my hair will never compare to this guy who literally looks like he just woke up. I don't even have it that bad, and I'm purposely trying to mess my hair up. There we go. I'm ready to be a BBC interviewee about a international level arrest and prison sentence. Let's go.
Indeed he does. And if you look back to the court case at the end of last month, you'll recall that it was a rather controversial decision by the judges in the sense that defenders of Sarkozy were extremely angered by it. The judges in that case cleared him of the 3 major charges, which were of conspiracy to corrupt and raising
Solitary confinement. Yes, that was what I was looking for. Thank you. That is what I was looking for. Also, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Crazy how it's only these 5-year prison sentence. It's because they got rid of the 3 other charges, one of which was conspiracy. Bruh, what do we have to do to bury elected officials in the judicial system for crimes they fucking committed? Like, my God, Bolsonaro got 27 years for attempting to coup d'etat Brazil. And that's not enough. Where's the life sentence without the possibility for parole? Where's the death penalty? Like, I'm just saying, if you're trying to overthrow a country and all you get is 27 years, he might survive that. Hell, the next Brazilian Congress or president might commute his fucking jail sentence. He served a few years. What can he do? And then tries to do that shit again, like a Brazilian version of Hitler. Like, this is nuts that the only country that seems to be holding former heads of state accountable is South Korea. But hey, and China for that matter. During the 2008 financial crisis, China executed bankers. Like, they off with their heads. Like, where we need more of that energy. And it's coming from France, the land of the guillotine. Why are we not doing the sneep? While we smoke our cigarettes and eating our baguette? Why do we not stick his head in the guillotine and do the little snip? I don't know. That's my question.
Illegal funds, but they did convict him of the 4th count, which everyone thought was the lesser account, which was of criminal association, in other words, being part of a group, some of whom carried out a criminal act. It was never proven to the court, as far as his lawyers are concerned, that Sarkozy had actually known of this conspiracy to raise money, which failed. And therefore, they're very angry that there's such a harsh sentence, an exemplary sentence, was imposed on him. Of course, the other side of the equation, put by members of the judiciary and the left in general, is that, there was some kind of conspiracy. He was in charge, should have been in charge of his own camp, and if they approached the Libyans for money, he's partly responsible. But there was no doubt, though, that this is a very harsh and exemplary punishment that he's got, especially as there's no stay of execution of the sentence pending an appeal, which in most cases there would be, given that he's not in any way a threat or liable to abscond.
So what?
So I think we found a Sarkozy supporter, the way he just described all that. But I guess from a legal standpoint, like if you're doing brass tacks lawyering, I guess I can kind of see where he's coming from. But it's a very shaky foundation that he was charged with being around criminals, but wasn't himself aware of it, because even if he wasn't aware of it, it was his party that was trying to organize it, and therefore, by association, he's guilty. So, okay, I see you. Let me raise you. Oh, wait, I was in the wrong. I'm already on that one. Okay. Let me raise you this, because I apparently don't know how to use shortcut commands. Let me raise you this. Trump. Running for president, right? Became president of the United States. There has been a mountain of evidence that Project 2025 was directly responsible for helping his administration win the election and is being currently executed in real time. Project 2025 could be seen as any number of criminal conspiracy activities because it's undermining our Constitution, our democracy, and the checks and balances systems outright. And even if we didn't go that far, cool. Let's look at the Epstein list. Oh, that's right, we can't because it's continuously not being released. Okay, let's look at the real facts that the sitting president has 34 felony counts against him, had dozens of credible sexual assault and rape charges against him, right? and that an overwhelming majority of his supporters, like his elite supporters, are also being found back to back to back to back to being part of criminal action, whether it's with the women, whether it's with fraud, whether it's with corruption, right? Never mind the blatant violation of the Emoluments Clause. Never mind the fact that Tom Homan, or whatever the fuck his name is, accepted a $50,000 bribe. Not that he was willing to, did accept a $50,000 bribe. Or that half of his cabinet is undermining science, the law, just generally the law, and endangering people left, right, and center, and themselves gotten into those positions due to sheer amounts of corruption. Like, the association with Trump, his associates have either been notably overt about their blatant corruption, again, selling the $5 million golden green card, or whatever the fuck it's called, using Trump coin as a way to solicit funds and favors, using the ballroom funding, having people donate to the funding of the ballroom, again, to solicit favors. Everyone involved in the soliciting of favors is committing bribery. Granted, at the behest of the president, but it's still bribery. So, like, at the end of the day, if merely being associated with potential criminal activity can get you 5 years, then what the fuck are we doing here in America with this administration? That's my question. That's just what I would like to know. Let's see what else is on this one.
What happens now? He will serve the full 5 years. Just tell us about the present. Tell us about the historic moment that this is as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a big moment. This is a former president of France who's a man very active still politically with his network, still regarded by many on the right as once upon a time, the last chance of the right. The last time the right was united was behind Sarkozy.
So this guy is the Reagan of France. That makes sense. Now I'm getting a better picture of what kind of scum this guy is.
10, 12 years ago. So a man who still counts. And here he is imprisoned in an 11 square meter cell in a wing near drugs dealers and convicted terrorists. For the whole of France, this is a shocking and quite unusual moment, whether you are for him or against. And so, yes, he's gone in making quite clear he does not want to have any special favours done. He did not ask to be put in the isolation wing, but he was put there for his own safety by the prison authorities because they know that he would be a potential target for other inmates who would, find pleasure in beating him up or whatever. And he's going to have the regular prison routine. Of 1 hour exercise all by himself in a courtyard, a television in his room, a lavatory and a shower in his room, but not much else. And then he'll have to wait and see. There will be early an appeal to get him out by his lawyers, so it's most unlikely he will serve, probably no more than a few months. But he doesn't know that, and I would say he's gone in very much regarding this as an opportunity to win friends among the French public, because he's gone in with his head held high, holding his hands with his wife before she set off, saying he doesn't want any favours, and he's suddenly behaving in a very dignified way, which I think will win a lot of support around the country.
And that's actually something I was about to say. If he's the French Reagan, and he only got charged with the lesser charge, and it wasn't even proven that he was aware of what was going on, then this could very well be the comeback of the century for the French right, which is not a great thing to want to say out loud, because when you think of France, you think of Révolution et la guillotine and the end of the monarchy, right? That's what you think of. Not Ronald fucking Reagan making a comeback. Secondly, Macron isn't any better. He's a neoliberal at best, which makes him, at the very least, at the same level of Reagan back in the 80s. And maybe some levels of Obama, Clinton, whatever have you. But this arrest and the way they are allow, like, I mean, look at the police escort, the fact that he's still active in politics, the fact that he is, dignified and not being given the Luigi treatment, right? He's not given the perp walk. If you want to make an example of a criminal, right, that violated your highest national laws, no less as a former president, like, you don't let the guy hold his hands with his wife, wearing a nice suit and having his coiffed hair and waving to people as he's going to prison. That's a hero's farewell. He's basically being given free publicity, free promotion by the state of France to the French people for his prison sentence. And even if he does somehow end up there in the whole 5 years, as long as they continue to treat him like this, he's going to walk out of there and say, look at what they did to me. And look at how I overcame. Look at how my brothers and sisters were unable to keep the right-wing ideology of France down. Like, this has the makings of a hero's journey. And that's going to biblically backfire in France. Especially considering the neoliberalism is so entrenched that they keep going through PMs and not getting rid of Macron, but still having a significant amount of civil unrest in France. It's crazy. Shakers, hey, hope you're good, man. Been a while, but I remember watching your stream a while back. Have you heard of 3i Atlas, and what do you think it is? So, first of all, yes, welcome back. We have missed you. Glad that you are joining us again. I have heard of 3i Atlas, and what do I think it is? I think it's more than likely just a comment. Realistically, it's more than likely a comment that just through whatever divine machinations of physics and, space physics managed to do some pretty interesting stuff. Now, realistically, right? Boring Professor Samuel Ronan, right? But Comrade Ronan, who wants to be a space cowboy, is praying that it is an alien craft. Because, and this is why I say that because after we discovered 3i Atlas, there were other unidentifiable objects that entered into our solar system. The big cloud, I think it's called the Oort cloud, O-O-R-T. There were 700-ish celestial objects that had entered also from the same area as the comet. So, my hope is that in November, our alien overlords come to strike down our leaders and then elevate those among us worthy of intergalactic community into their bosom and let us become space cowboys. But that's me, right? So, Mr. Future President, today I saw a sign in the window of one of local stores that said, "We are deeply sorry, but our spiritual beliefs do not permit us to serve Trump voters." That's awesome. And honestly, that would be a great peaceful movement as well. Considering Trump supporters and Christian nationalists are getting away with saying, well, I believe in the Bible, so I don't have to buy you none of them their homosexual cakes, you homo, right? If they can say that, why can't we say, well, my spiritual beliefs doesn't support fascism, right? We believe in consent, believe it or not. What's another one? Oh, yeah. I believe in the 3 jewels. So, sorry, we cannot humor, your bigoted fascism. All right? We do not stand Morgoth, otherwise known as Sauron, right? We don't stand Morgoth, the fallen the Dark One, right? I forget now what they were called. By the Fëanor. No, that was the elves. Morgoth. Ah, dang it. What do they call them, though? Iluvatar? No, I think that... The Ainur, right. We do not stand Morgoth of the Ainur. Jeez. Sorry. I'm a bit too nerdy that I knew most of that lore without actually having to go through the book, and I've only read this once, so I apologize for being that nerdy. If they argue, we simply point them to the case of the Colorado baker, exactly, and the gay couple he was allowed to refuse to serve on the base of spiritual beliefs. I worship Old Saint Joe from Waterworld. Right. We could worship Cthulhu or the Flying Spaghetti Monster. You know, they also talk about equality. We could worship Samuel Ronan, the Dark Lord, the second coming of Christ. Who said that? Who also values, you know, not being bigoted and not being discriminatory. So, I mean, we can worship whatever the hell we want, right? That's the thing about beliefs. And if we counter-protest them that way, I think that would be a very novel way to do it. And what are they going to do? Well, you have to prove that those are your spiritual beliefs. Okay, prove you're a Christian. How much of your wealth do you give away to the poor? How much do you pay in tithes to the church? Right? Do you lust after women? Let's look at your social media history. Do you mock women? Do you mock transgender? Do you mock foreigners? Because that's in Leviticus not to do that. And in the Beatitudes, it says, pluck out your own fucking eyes if they cause you to sin. So if they force us to prove our spiritual beliefs, Jedi, Norse, whatever have you, force them in the countersuit to prove that they're actually Christian. It would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right. Looks like... Oh, wait, was I... Oh, I already started at the bottom of, or in the middle of the list. My bad. All right. Well, then let's go back up to the top of this list here. Bolivia. Rodrigo Paz vows
the morning
unity
after his
and
victory,
economic
President-elect Rodrigo Paz promised unity and...
You thought I was being embellishing when I said Rodrigo, but listen to that.
The morning after his victory, President-elect Rodrigo Paz
I was not embellishing it.
promised unity and transparency after nearly 20 years of socialist rule.
We've extended a hand to all political forces in Parliament because I believe the people's mandate is not confrontation. It's not violence in the streets, but rather restoring institutional order we've lost.
So wait, we're still getting a continuation of 20 years of socialism, right? Or is this fucker a neoliberal? Because that's kind of worrisome. It's kind of worrisome.
Paz and his running
That
mate,
phrase.
former police captain Edman Lara, won over working class and rural voters frustrated by soaring inflation and a crippling dollar shortage that has stifled economic growth and led to widespread fuel shortages. The new president's first test will be to deal with this mess, bringing in US dollars and enough gasoline to ease the shortages that have left Bolivians queuing for days.
I don't know enough about Bolivian history or economics or politics for that matter to say that their version of socialism was a failure and that's what led to this. But I'm guessing it wasn't. I'm just willing to bet that the socialism in Bolivia did not lead to widespread economic failure, but rather any effort by literally any sort of opposition to undermine the initiatives that are necessary for a socialist framework to succeed. And it's a lie that there's been 20 years of socialist rule. There was a coup in 2019. See, that's what I was thinking, right? I didn't even know anything. But of course, we have Ana La Diosa, the living, breathing Encyclopedia Britannica of Latina or Latino lands. So there was a coup 6 years ago, and now everybody's suffering. Like, it kind of makes sense. Oh, that's right, because that was the original Evo, right? Because Evo Morales is a different country, right? Or is that the one that I'm thinking of? No, that is him. Okay, so yeah. We had Evo Morales, and that was exactly who we wanted. That was the guy. They ousted him in 2019 thanks to probably United States CIA. And then the country starts going to shit. So now they can start running. They'll see what socialism did? We're going to go back to capitalism. And there we go. So maybe Rodrigo Paz, it might not be quite as bad as maybe some of the other presidents have been, or neoliberal leadership has been, but clear. I'm not gonna hold my breath. But thank you for that. Oh, that's the one. Okay, we can coup whoever we want and take the lithium out of. Okay, yeah. Great. So so this guy is really not looking good at all then. This guy is looking worse and worse by the second. Thank you for clearing up that context. I think you're going to be the Secretary of State when everything's said and done.
We have to have faith that his promise that there will be gasoline will come true. New governments always promise a lot. Hopefully, this one will be sincere and keep its word to the Bolivian people.
Well,
Paz said he's already in talks with the US and regional partners to secure energy supplies and rebuild Bolivia's global standing.
Notice how all of his volunteers were like stunningly attractive women for the photo shoot. Like, dude, you're just cheesing up, trying to get as much polls as possible. I know what you're doing there. Yeah, where's the actual volunteer set? If they were genuinely his top campaign supporters and volunteers, I will literally eat this shoe. But I promise you it wasn't. I am so confident that wasn't the case.
Partners to secure energy supplies and rebuild Bolivia's global standing.
Wild.
We've been in dialogue, especially
And
with the
the
US
whitest
government.
Bolivians,
I think this is
right.
very important. We spoke with the Deputy Secretary of State about working with friendly countries like Brazil, Uruguay and Argentina to solve the hydrocarbons issue.
But without a majority in Congress, pushing through painful reforms won't be easy.
I foresee
Isn't that what I just said? A presidency, a new administration can only succeed if the Congress allows it. And we have a divided Congress.
protests very soon after him taking office, because he has promised to cushion the fall for the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable in Bolivia are the most of the population, are the majority. So it will be very difficult to cushion it for all of the population.
The new president may enjoy a brief honeymoon period, but for now his victory marks the start of a new era in Bolivian politics, filled with both hope and challenges. Alessandro Ampietti, Al Jazeera, La Paz, Bolivia.
So, I'm basically, my analysis of this election, Anna's reminder for me that the Evo Morales that I was thinking of was, in fact, the Bolivian president. And the fact that there was the coup, which, again, Elon Musk was bragging about on Twitter. We can coup whoever we want, even though he's South African, not American. But, you know, I am guessing that with the victories of neoliberalism occurring in former socialist states, and the fact that US imperialist aggression is escalating, ramping up in ways that we haven't seen since the Cold War, my guess is that Bolivia is going to be turning into Argentina real soon, and that there's a very real possibility that if they don't turn into Argentina, which is licking das Stiefel of Donald Trump, that they might turn into the route of Venezuela. But the thing there becomes, Bolivia might be too small of a country to be on the radar of Trump, whereas Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, and a couple of the other major coastal, like Chile and Brazil, those countries are under fierce scrutiny because those are the largest economies in South America. So my hope is that, obviously, that this administration does what it says and that they work together to accomplish it for the benefit of the Bolivian people. But when you have an economic crisis where a majority of the population is living in poverty and struggling, when in America that is the case, and everywhere else in Europe and Western capitalist societies, you have to start questioning the validity of the economic process. If a majority of the world's population is still in poverty and a majority of the world has embraced capitalism, then clearly that's not the fucking answer. It's just not the answer. And you can't just fascism it into being the answer. It's like, well, nobody's unhappy or poor anymore because if they say they are, we'll kill them. Like that's actually, not that I've read this one yet, but it's one of these two books. So anyway, and Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, and they shoyalized it under Chavez. Or is it Chavez? Is it Chavez or Chavez? Because I know sometimes the CHs are pronounced more like a ch. Just want to be accurate if I say the names. Now, speaking of South America and Colombia, this one, Chavez.
Colombia's foreign ministry.
I think that was the last one I said. So, as I said, the rising escalation with Colombia and Venezuela, right? I'll say it American style, is that Colombia recalls the ambassador from the US amid Petro's escalating feud with Trump, right? So that is significant, right? That is the first signal between two countries that diplomatic relations have ceased, which is almost, not always, but is very often predicated or preceded by, or no, is a predecessor for, let me rephrase, either significant economic withdrawals or military action. You don't withdraw your ambassador because you want to sing Kumbaya. You withdraw your ambassador because you don't want them getting caught up in whatever thing you're about to do to that country. Like Chad. So it's Chavez. Got it. All right. So now that I've learned how to say Chavez in Colombia, let's hear it.
Says it has recalled its ambassador from the United States, escalating the feud between President Trump and Colombia's President Gustavo Petro. Petro is accusing the U.S. of murdering a Colombian fisherman in a military strike on his boat in the Caribbean.
It's not alleged. This is literally what is happening. And the fact that, again, so the thing about the United Nations, there is the International Court of Criminal Courts, right? That is its own entity that cannot be voted on by any of the member states for obvious reasons. So if charges are ever brought against this administration through the ICC, it's still only enforceable if member states choose to enforce it. Does that make sense? Because Netanyahu has an international warrant out for its arrest, and there are numbers of countries that refuse to honor that warrant. He's visited America blatantly several times in 1 year while having that active warrant for his arrest. Even when the United Nations gathered. Even when he spoke. Hold on. No, yeah, Netanyahu did speak at the United Nations, and they still didn't fucking arrest his ass. So, Colombia stating that this happened, that America did this, they could bring charges up to the ICC. But it's a question of, will the world actually hold this country accountable? And the answer is no, which is a failure of the United Nations and the ICC. There is no checks and balances. There is no accountability, especially when everybody who actually is in charge is benefiting from the capitalism and the fascism that is circling the drain throughout the world.
One of at least 7 strikes on boats the U.S. alleges were carrying narcotics bound for the U.S., and one of at least 32 people who have died as a result of those strikes. Joining us now, Washington correspondent for the New York Times, Charlie Savage, and White House and Foreign Affairs correspondent for Politico, Eli Stokel. So, Charlie, what is the response from the White House to Colombia?
Well, President Trump has already been feuding with the president of Colombia. He canceled his visa in September after the president of Colombia called for U.S. troops to disobey Trump and also criticized Trump's support for Israel in the Gaza war. So these are not people who were previously getting along. But Trump has canceled foreign aid to Colombia and told that country that its president has a smart mouth and they better clean up their act, et cetera. So this is certainly not a happy situation between the two countries, with the president of Colombia essentially accusing the Trump campaign of murder.
What is it?
I think really that summarizes it. I think I do remember that too. That we were talking about that in last month, that the Colombian president had their visa revoked, and that Trump was accusing them of all sorts of crazy nonsense. So, but again, the fact that the United States continues to murder boats off of the coasts of these countries without any sort of investigation or verification, that like no actual evidence that they can corroborate, because again, say they were narco-terrorists, right? If they were narco-terrorists and they were being accused of killing innocent civilians, and you had the evidence, you had the receipts that they were in fact narco-terrorists, wouldn't be that the first thing you would do on the news every single day? It's like, nope, I have the receipts, it was definitely them, and that's why I ordered it. The fact that that's not happening, and that the Pentagon isn't responding, right, or isn't, addressing it directly, but rather saying, well, they seem to be lawful targets based on the information we had. One, that's them trying to cover their own ass during the upcoming Nuremberg trials, right? But secondly, it's also to try and, I mean, I don't even know, follow the whims of this emperor wannabe. So the fact that that's the thing that I've never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. I never thought I would see in my lifetime the United States military be so gleefully willing to commit war crimes. And maybe that's more naivete. That 100% you can go ahead and be like, what a loser, what a naive loser, and you want to be president? Cool. You can make fun of me all you want. I just never thought I would see it in my lifetime where we are blatantly, like not even under the guise of a global war on terror, not even under the guise of going after Al-Qaeda terrorists or whatever else, which every time we kill a terrorist or a leader or whatever, we show the picture and where they were with their mugshot and the list of their crimes. Because we found this person and we know who that person is, and we verified it through military intelligence. The collateral damage is what we choose to ignore. That's the war crime, right? Haha, we're doing war crimes all the time. What are you talking about? Cool. We're not even doing that at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not even attempting to justify the act. We're not even trying to prove that the act was justified. We're just apparently murdering people helter-skelter and going on the news and say, do something about it. Now, granted, Colombia and Venezuela are doing something about it. They are pushing back against the United States, and maybe that will encourage other South American countries to do the same. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, will these countries be willing to take military action against the United States when inevitably the United States pushes back with military action? Again, these are things that, like, pundits will talk about, like, oh, they're not gonna fight, they're just, dick measuring. Okay, in the meantime, 32 people have died off of the coast of their respective countries for doing their jobs, while the military, the US military, the alleged peacekeepers of the world, are doing the murdering without any attempt at finding evidence to do so. Right? That has led to war for significantly less in the past. These actions have led to war in the past for way, way less. It would have been after one boat, right? Now we got 4 boats in 2 different countries, or more boats. I don't know how many boats, but across 2 countries. Now, the United States military is a very powerful entity, but there's already been reports that we've pretty much exhausted all of our spare munitions because we were giving them to Israel to turn Palestine into a fucking parking lot and a demolition ring, right? So the United States military is also struggling with recruitment and retention at the time, and our air and weapon systems are also aging out rapidly without being replaced by something modern. So I think the era of U.S. hegemony and imperial strength and superiority is waning, other than, of course, our nuclear arsenal. But if it comes to nuclear war, well, then we've already lost, no matter who ends up winning. All I'm saying is, this is extremely, extremely scary stuff that can escalate at a moment's notice.
The goal here, Eli, from the administration, is it a narcotics war, or is this regime change in South America?
Well, I don't think the answer to your second question is fully settled inside this White House, Katie, but I think in terms of homeland security, this is an administration that put defending the homeland from drug trafficking and from illegal migration. They put that at the top of the list of threats to the United States, above threats from other countries like China. This is a priority for this administration. And so that is what they are saying this is about. Whether the administration decides to go further, and whether that we see strikes inside Venezuela, whether there are more actions against Colombia, that remains to be seen. But I think, from the people that we have talked to inside this White House, there seems to be more unanimity among the senior team behind what the president has done so far. Whether they are all aligned on sort of the end game, that is a different question. I'm not sure.
Thank you for the follow, Razor. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, that is the question about what is this administration attempting to do. And I personally believe it's regime change, because that's what this country's been doing since January 21st. Anyway, it has been undermining all democratic establishments, undermining all established leadership, all established balance of powers, and trying to consolidate that authority under one person, Trump. He already tried bullying the world into following his vision of economic trade policy, and that failed spectacularly. So now he's using the military to continue that pursuit. Now, whether we see it actually turn out that way, again, I truly, deeply hope not, but given what we are seeing in South America in that theater, there is growing evidence that this may turn hostile with the intent of regime change. The American military should correct that for the APAC military. Trump don't give a fuck about America. No, I 100% agree. And again, this is coming from somebody who did serve in the military, someone who is an Air Force veteran. I would not have followed those orders. I would have immediately gone to my legal office and said, how can I become a conscientious objector, or how can I file into the JAG that this is an unlawful order, that they are ordering me to deploy to an allied nation, and now while on the boat, if I couldn't avoid that, while I'm on the boat, we're attacking innocent civilians without verifying it. Like, again, these are the steps that every single one of those Marines should be taking. The 4,000 Marines should be taking that action. How do I legally avoid these orders? And how do I legally force the captain to stand down? Because we are killing innocent civilians, escalating tensions in this theater, and we are the aggressors. We are not supposed to be the aggressors. There is nothing to aggress. So, yeah, the long and short of it is having this sociopath who deems himself an emperor wielding our military and economy as weapons against other countries is deeply disturbing. Mossad has indeed attacked America, and instead of responding, they are given tax money. Well, and that's the thing, right? We thought in 2017 that Trump was a Russian plant. Well, now we can strongly assume that Trump is an Israeli plant, a Zionist plant, right? And if either one of those things is even remotely true, then democracy as we know it, the country as we know it, is doomed, right? Because we are no longer for, of, and by the people. We are being controlled by a foreign entity. And this administration cares only for enriching and empowering itself. And every single one of its acts doesn't empower the American people or the country of America, but rather gives Israel immunity to its crimes and allows trade that was otherwise going to the United States of America to go either to Israel, Russia, or China, right? So either which way, it's a weakening of the U.S. as a superpower and as an economic superpower. And that needs to be discussed far more than what we are seeing. So I guess he wasn't done with that this past week. He's also going after India.
And Donald Trump has again warned India over its Russian oil imports, saying Prime Minister Modi assured him that New Delhi would restrict its crude purchases from Moscow. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said India would continue paying massive tariffs if it did not comply, and confirm his many claimed conversations with the Indian leadership.
I spoke with Prime Minister Modi of India, and he said he's not going to be doing the Russian oil thing, so that's it.
Now, Trump's remarks come against the backdrop of 50% tariffs on Indian goods. The US argues that oil revenues fund Russia's war in Ukraine, while India maintains its import policies guided purely by national and consumer interests. India's energy choices now sit at the heart of its trade negotiations with the United States. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said talks are progressing in a cordial atmosphere, though no deadline has been set for a deal. Interestingly, analysts say Trump's aggressive stance on China could accelerate a new trade agreement. While the administration continues to defend tariffs as a major conflict solver, the shift could also reflect a broader geopolitical realignment as the US seeks to mend ties with India amid its ongoing economic rivalry with China.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and I don't remember what S is. S might be Syria for all I know. I really don't know what S is. But what kills me is that India is one of the major pillars of the BRICS agreement, which is growing rapidly from African and South American countries, Middle Eastern countries, and Central Asian countries. So, like, how is any way, form, or fashion trying to strong arm India, which already has... Oh, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I did forget that. Okay, still, so that's my point. BRICS already has 5 major economic players, and America is choosing to strong arm one of those 5 major pillars of BRICS into doing what America wants, when India already has a trade agreement elsewhere. Like, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. Anyway, on a much lighter note, and I think hilarious note at that, the Louvre heist. I'm sure everybody's heard about this. So, evidently,
thieves
in like Hollywood fashion or Ocean's 11 fashion, French jewel thieves broke into the Louvre, stole royal jewelry like crowns and necklaces and stuff. And within minutes of walking into the Louvre, and according to some, that it was if they were found in the British Museum, but that might have been satire. Others said that it was already stolen. Others said it was left broken and in pieces in front of other places. But what's most notable is that the heist happened right around the same time as the No Kings protest. And talk about elevating the No Kings protest French style, stealing the jewels of former monarchs.
Into the Louvre in Paris, stealing crown jewels and prompting the world's most visited museum to be evacuated. Here's how the heist happened and why French authorities are in a race against time.
This is going to be a movie one day. I can taste it.
To recover the jewels. The robbery took place in the Galerie d'Apollon. At around 9:30 in the morning, 4 individuals drove motorcycles and a truck with a portable furniture elevator to the museum. They used the elevator to get up onto a balcony. They then cut through a window
Bro, how do you bring that truck to the Louvre without security getting in the way? That's already insane. Like, oh, you can just break into the Louvre by getting a giant lift? Are you serious?
What appeared to be angle grinders. Once inside the gallery, the thieves used the...
So there is no... Okay, so you could just drive a lift truck up to the Louvre, and then there is no sensors on the glass to the outside of the Louvre. to warn of entry. Okay, interesting.
Grinders to threaten guards and to cut into display cases containing Napoleonic and royal jewellery. The thieves tried but failed to set their truck on fire before fleeing on the motorcycles. They were in and out of the gallery in less than 7 minutes.
Jesus.
The stolen jewels once belonged to French royalty or imperial rulers and include diadems, necklaces, earrings and brooches. French authorities described the items as priceless. The thieves dropped a crown belonging to Empress Eugenie with nearly 1,400 diamonds before speeding away. It was later found damaged. Sunday's heist wasn't the museum's first. In 1911, an Italian national stole Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. It was found 2 years later.
Yeah, but see, that's in 1911. This is 2025, 2 days ago, and all they did is essentially what teenagers would do to break into a freaking high school after hours and mess with their teacher's desk or something. It's literally the same concept. Bring your bikes, get a ladder, get something to break into the window with, take the stuff with the same tool, and then bounce on your bikes. Bro, like, this is the most, like, I don't want to say underwhelming because that's insane. But like anticlimactic. It wasn't like people wearing spy goggles, doing backflips and cartwheels across the red laser protected, extra security thick, glass cases that was covering these priceless artifacts. It was basically, let's show up on our motorcycles, bring the lift truck, get an angle grinder from frickin' Le Peyolos, and then literally cut into the Louvre, cut into the glass. It was regular glass. It wasn't bulletproof glass. It wasn't like diamond quartz reinforced glass. It wasn't some sort of other like cut resistant material. It was just standard glass. The windows weren't protected in any form or fashion, and they came up with a giant ladder. That's fucking nuts. I think the issue of unlimited support by Israel by American presidents is due to the AIPAC organization. If there is no solution for them, American leaders will remain heavily subservient. So, since you're new to the stream... Oh, that's right. I put it over here. I do have my Israeli relations page, which I will gladly share. Check that out, because I scorched earth will decimate all Zionist and Israeli relations in the United States of America, and to include demanding the capitulation of the Israeli government. So yeah, about the Louvre, right? It was weird. Where's the security? But no one reported that. They were literally thieves, the French story. Right. Like, it was just literally... I feel like the idea was something that somebody just came up in their basement. They're like, bro, we could totally steal the crown jewels out of the Louvre. Hear me out, bro. We get motorcycles for everybody, right, bro? Then we get a giant ladder truck, bro, and some angle grinders from Lelos. And we just climb up the ladder. That's that good shit. Cut into the window and cut into the glass. What could go wrong, bro? That's one of those types of things. Because think about it. Ocean's 11. They had to have people with technology. They had to have people with demolitions. They had to have people working the tables. They had to start a revolution in Mexico in the factory. They had to do all this shit just to get a casino to go bankrupt in a few minutes, right? They went through all this trouble to go after a casino. And I think, take Mission Impossible movies, right? They have to go through all this bullshit gadgetry, putting on the fake mask, the changing your voice, all this stuff just to get a document. And these four just legends walked up a freaking regular lift truck with a regular angle grinder and stole French history right out of the Louvre and then made a clean getaway. That's so fucking great. I'm here for it. Well, at least the thieves stole the right thing. French history is stolen from African wealth. Right. What would have been even better is if that's exactly what happened. If they stole African artifacts and then mailed it back to the host countries. Like, that would be insane. Oh, man. 7 minutes. Like, I don't know how you make the movie, because I guess we haven't caught these guys yet, and maybe we never will. Imagine if we never catch the perpetrators, the thieves. Imagine if we never do that. The movie that would come from that, it would be like them living their best lives and turning into like the Fast and Furious movies, right? It's all about family. Oh man, this is great. Let's finish this video.
And in 1983, 2 Renaissance-era pieces of armour were stolen before being recovered decades later in 2021. Paris's Modern Art Museum has also been targeted. In 2010, a thief made off with more than $120 million worth of artworks. The heist comes as museum officials have raised alarms about the building's weak security. With
Yeah! I think that's the understatement of the century.
Investigators racing to find the stolen jewels, experts warn that as the items are so famous, they cannot be sold on, adding that the pieces instead could be dismantled.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Okay, so they stole the goods. They got the goods, right? How are they gonna get money? I think if you're a thief, right? Like, if you're a career thief, not like you're stealing from the bodega or you're stealing from Walmart, right? Because who hasn't stolen from Walmart, right? I mean, I have not. But if you're a career thief, like a criminal, like you want to make a name for yourself as a thief, you steal the crown jewels of France from the Louvre, and then you fucking brag about it in your thiefy thief circles. And then you sell it to underground collectors, right? Billionaires like Musk, like Trump, like Bezos, who want these things, want to claim that they have it, and then be like, share it with their billionaire buddies. Hey, look what I have. Oh yeah, it was stolen. I don't know who ordered it, but that's what you do with those pieces. Because again, they always are found again. The Mona Lisa's found again. The armor was found again. The artwork was found again, right? You don't dismantle those pieces, because then the legend of stealing those pieces goes away. Oh, you stole it and you were a cuck and dismantled Napoleon's fucking cock ring? What a dick. What an absolute chode, right? But if you're the thief who then in old age is like, oh yeah, you can have it back. Like, come on. That would be legendary status. And to do it in modern times, granted, because it had the security systems of 1911 on it still, but it's still the Louvre, and it's still French imperial jewelry. Like, the fucking attaboy. Like, they were probably just drunk on baguette, wine, and cigarettes. Like, those guys are going to be legendary. Whenever we find out who they are, they will be legendary. There will be books written about them. There will be movies created about them. We might even get a crime series, like a television series on Netflix from these guys. Outstanding. Here for it. Of course, they will distort the true story, because France always hides its reality with tricks. Eric, thank you for the follow. Speculation says they are stealing it for a rich person, and he will give them the money because, of course, they won't be able to sell it. No, that was my theory, too. When I first found out about it, I posted that. Like, no, this was somebody extremely rich that wants a cute little toy to share with people. Hello, welcome to the stream. For once, we've been an hour into a stream, and I haven't lost my mind due to rage and frustration at the fascism and dystopian future of our reality. So that's good. Having a nice lighthearted chuckle, and shout out to the French thieves is definitely a highlight of today's stream, for sure. For sure. There's other videos that are saying that there's an international manhunt, and then CBC is talking about how they pulled it off. But I think this was very succinct. I fucking loved that. All right. I guess we got to go back to reality now. Okay. If we run out of time, we might watch another
Let's go straight to that breaking news. Video. It revolves around Ukraine. Several things to bring you right up to date, because the White House, first of all, have been speaking, and the first line to tell you is that that proposed summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is not going to happen in the immediate future. We'd been getting a sense of that earlier in the day with the plan of Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov meeting. There were problems with laying the groundwork, and already we'd heard that was being pushed back. So there is no surprise that confirmation from the White House that the summit that was due to happen in Hungary, perhaps as early as next week, there is no plans for that summit to go ahead.
Okay, why are we dragging that out? It's not going to happen because Putin isn't making time for his baby boy to meet about Ukraine, which Russia has no interest in stopping because he's currently winning. So why would he meet with Trump, who has no capacity to do fuck all, while he's ahead? So that's the thing. As much as we absolutely want and deserve an end to the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, it's still, like, if you look at it from the perspective of Putin, why would he end while he's ahead and without making the demands that he wants, which is probably going to be the natural resources of Ukraine, plus all the land that they've already conquered? So, like, there's nothing to talk about in Putin's mind. Why should he be bothered? He continues to win. He continues to gain ground. Eventually, he will conquer Ukraine. And then what? That's what Putin is thinking. And Trump is not going to be the guy to force Putin into the negotiating chair, because he's either owned by Putin or Putin just writes Trump off as irrelevant, as China's Xi does as well. Yeah. Bro, war ending and Israel is still attacking Gaza. They have violated the ceasefire 80 times since October 10th. So no, Israel does not honor ceasefires. They don't honor anything. They don't honor the law. They don't honor sovereign rights. They don't honor any of that shit. They are the modern day Nazis that are using the Holocaust as a thin veneer to get away with every single crime under the book, while influencing Western society with significant amounts of propaganda. Well, selling it as a whole piece is difficult unless they give it to a rich person. Of course, they will melt down the most important part to sell it normally. But that's the thing. Jewels actually don't retain their value once they've already been cut and once they've already been set. That's why trying to resell a diamond ring doesn't get you very far, because the diamond itself isn't that valuable. Neither are emeralds or sapphires or rubies. What makes them valuable is when they're in the piece and made by somebody famous, or they're very old and have significant value. But yeah, I agree. The only thing that those thieves would do is either bragging rights or sell it to the rich person that hired them to do it. So this is what Zelensky cannot understand. Europe and America will not care. They all want the maximum benefit from ending the war. Europe wants to weaken Russia, and America wants to subdue Russia. Except I don't even think America, under Trump, even gives a shit about Russia other than what Russia wants. Because, again, America could have taken a stronger stance against Russia. Taking a stronger stance against NATO only benefits Russia. Europe does not have the capacity to develop ammunition, arms, or any of that stuff. Like, the European military has been sufficiently drawn down because America was supplying the military as part of the NATO agreement. Reneging on that only makes Russia stronger in the short term, and perhaps even the long term, because it'll take time for Europe to even scale their military presence. And by that time, Russia could have already taken Ukraine and gained Ukrainian resources and bolstered Russian prominence in the theater. Hell, the fact that Russia is the second letter of BRICS and that they are strongly coordinating with China already and influencing other trade across the world, not just in their immediate vicinity, but also Africa and also South America. The long-term game of Russia being played here is to be able to ignore NATO altogether, because Russia was dependent on NATO for trade, ironically. And NATO is dependent on Russia for oil. All Russia has to do is cut that shit off and sell it to somebody else, like India. And Europe would be fucked. That's the thing. Europe does not hold nearly enough cards to force Russia to its knees or to the negotiation table, hence why it hasn't happened yet. Well, the Europeans say they are helping Ukraine, so why don't they send soldiers? They're the ones who want the war to continue instead of stopping this madness, and Trump wants benefits from Zelensky to stop the war. No, that's 100% accurate. Europeans want the war to end without lifting a single fucking finger to make it end. They don't want to contribute blood. They don't want to contribute sweat. They don't want to contribute flesh, bones, or any of that to the effort. They just want to contribute money and maybe some weapon systems. Because nobody has a stomach for war, because nobody should have the stomach for war. It's 2025. Theoretically, we have the technology to start looking into space. We have the technology to make transnational high-speed rail a reality. We have the technology to feed every single man, woman, and child on planet Earth and to treat them with healthcare and with the medicine that we are developing. We have the ability to educate every single human being on the face of this earth, and we have the clean energy technologies to stop polluting it. We have the capability to heading towards the Star Trek utopian future of our dreams. But we're being ran by fascist capitalists. We are being ran by the greatest threat humanity has ever invented, capitalism. And that's what's driving all of this brazen stupidity. Another shouting match with Zelensky? Are we fucking serious?
Trump is now, once again, after that call, coming to Putin's defense, telling Zelensky in a meeting that reportedly turned into a shouting match that Putin would destroy his country if he didn't agree to ending the war on Putin's terms, even tossing aside masks.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. Trump is trying to negotiate with Putin, but out of this, in the same breath as saying that Ukraine needs to surrender to Russia on Russian terms. Actually, the irony is that Russia isn't giving Trump the opportunity to say that on the world stage. Like taking advantage of Trump's stupidity. Like that's the part that is actually kind of surprising me.
Like this one showing the front lines of the war, saying enough of that. Now, this is according to the new explosive reporting from the Financial Times' Max Seddon, a regular here on the show, who will be out front in just a moment. But in Moscow tonight, it's a celebration of Trump's once again backing Putin. And it
Which
doesn't
is
get more
extremely,
direct than this. I mean,
like, again, backing a country that was the aggressor in the attack and then trying to humiliate the victim of the attack, regardless of all the history involved, like the Nazis, the CIA coup, backed by America. You take all those things and you still look at it from the veneer of America was trying to use Ukraine as an asset. Then Trump comes along and is backing Russia. We had set the stage for nearly 11 years to make Ukraine an asset, and now Trump is trying to gain the favor of Russia. Like, it just doesn't make sense on a diplomatic point. It doesn't make a sense on a military point, and certainly not as a foreign policy development that took 11 years to bring to bear, right? Well, not 11 years, because it was the Ukrainian war started in what, 2021, I think? 2020? Numbers are getting a little hazy, I'm sorry. But the fact of the matter is, Russia is clearly aggressing at this point. They could have came to the negotiation table, and they could have agreed to Zelensky resigning and returning the land back to Ukraine and demanding restitutions in the form of natural resource agreements. And that could have been the end of it. But Russia wants more. And instead of calling that shit out like he should, it was 2022, so it's only been 3 years. Doesn't matter. Point is, instead of calling out Russian aggression and greed, Trump is siding with Russia. It's like, hey, Ukraine, they want all this stuff. You better give it to them or else it's going to be worse. And it's like, it's just like Israel saying, hey, Palestine, you need to disarm or we're going to start fighting you again. When they started fighting again as soon as before the ink had even dried. The ink was still wet on the ceasefire, and Israel was still attacking Palestinians. So, like, it's the same bait and switch, but it's different countries. Instead of Israel violating Palestine, it's Russia violating Ukraine. And lo and behold, America is protecting the violators.
Just listen to this clip from Russian state TV that was uncovered by journalist Julia Davis.
Putin understands Trump all too well. Trump doesn't understand Putin. Putin can manipulate him very well and lead Trump by his nose.
Which is what we've been saying.
Well, Russian state TV has some grounding in this. I mean, 27 days ago, Trump posted this. I'll read it. I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win. Win is the word Trump put in all caps. All of Ukraine back in its original form. Well, that shocked the world because it was an about face. But I mean, all of Ukraine, its original form, that's Donbass, that's Luhansk, that's Crimea, it's all of it. And headlines blared, calling it a sudden and major shift. But now, once again, the 180 of Trump saying he didn't say what he said. Because when he was asked today about that exact post saying win all of Ukraine back, here's what he said.
Well, they could. They could still win it. I don't think they will, but they could still win it. I never said they would win it.
Well, of course he did. He posted that 27 days ago. And
see, I don't mind snarky reporting, but like, it's snarky reporting without actually giving people a call to action, right? This is just her being condescending and a neoliberal, like, I want to go to brunch because of this idiot. Instead of highlighting how tweeting foreign policy has actual legal consequences to go along with it. And it causes diplomatic issues internationally with our allies and our adversaries. And none of that is being said. I'm glad CNN is at the very least willing to poke at Trump. Thank God. I mean, because a while ago they weren't even willing to do that. But that's all it is. It's snark. So, all of which is to say, I guess we're not going to get to the part of the shouting match because that's already making me sick. Trump doing constant 180s on Ukraine is him trying to gain whatever amount of favor points that he can get at the time he can get them. That's all he ever is trying to do. All he cares about is poll numbers. Do people like me and will people listen to me? That's all he gives a shit about. He will lie to your face every single day of the week if it means those lies will put a favorable impression of himself on you. And the fact that we're not even discussing that's not even being brought up, it's just a waste. Okay. So now we get to listen to the other chuckle fuck. Okay, so I think we'll watch this video. It's a longer video about the same thing. J.D. Vance goes to Israel. How many times... Okay, so how normal is it for a vice president to travel...
The U.S. vice president...
For the vice president to travel to a foreign country? How normal is that? Secondly, how normal is it to travel to a country that is being so heavily scrutinized on the international stage? Secondly, how normal is it to travel to a country that you are being accused of being a puppet of? I don't even know that Kamala traveled to Israel more than once a year or whatever. Hasn't J.D. Vance been to Israel several times now? Like, this is... And Netanyahu's been to America 4 times as of this moment. Like, it is so blatant that the United States of America is a puppet of Israel rather than the other way around. It boggles the mind. Well, it's clear that Europe is being manipulated while they give money and weapons to Ukraine. The president of the EU is actually yielding to Trump, who was talking to Putin and negotiating with him. Right. That's the thing. Nobody's negotiating because Putin has all of the cards. And until that changes, there isn't going to be meaningful negotiation. So yeah, something manipulation. Yep. And of course, the headline is, arrives in Israel as U.S. tries to strengthen Gaza ceasefire deal. And J.D. Vance says it's in a very good place.
J.D. Vance has arrived in Israel as the United States looks to shore up that fragile ceasefire in Gaza. He's expected to push Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, to start negotiations on a permanent end to the war with Hamas. Well, the visit follows deadly attacks in Gaza over the weekend. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in an incident in Rafah. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes.
I was going to say, you better fucking talk about the fact that Israel has not stopped shelling Palestinians. And if you want to talk about Israeli soldiers being killed in Rafah, then be honest about how and why that shit is happening.
Well, let's speak to our Middle East correspondent, Hugo Bechega. And Hugo, we have the special envoys there. We now have the US Vice President. I suppose that underlines just how fragile things are.
Yeah, Matthew. And the Israeli newspapers this morning had,
Anna, can you find out how many times J.D. Vance has been to Israel this year?
The view here was that this shows that the Americans are running the show in the words of one commentator, and that Israel is essentially following orders from the American administration, and that all these meetings, one of the messages in all these meetings between these American officials and the Israeli government is that the Americans want Israel to remain committed to the ceasefire. And one of the newspapers said that there was a very clear message given to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that the Americans respect actions by the Israeli military that are in self-defense, but that they don't expect any kind of action by Israel that might endanger the ceasefire and phase 2 of the president's plan. And I think the idea...
In what universe is the U.S. Vice President traveling to Israel a show of force? In what universe is that a show of force? Wouldn't the fact that Netanyahu went to the United Nations in the United States of America and gave a speech in the United Nations where he has an open warrant for his arrest for war crimes, wouldn't that be the show of power of who actually has the power and who actually is in charge in the world, let alone between Israel and the United States? The copium that is this level of reporting, I get it. There's only so many news networks that cover international news, and we can't always just do Al Jazeera. But like the BBC, my God, they should be calling it the BBI, because all they're talking about is the big, beautiful Israeli cock. Anyway.
Idea behind...
Oh, wait, sorry. Israel has no covenant or humanity. The deceived people think that October 7 is the reason for Israeli attack and blame Hamas. Well, Israel was attacking this people even before Hamas was established. Also, Israel violated the ceasefire, but if Hamas did it, they would label it as terrorism. Hypocrisy. Well, and that's what this guy just said. That he didn't say it out loud. He didn't say those words that Hamas attacked Israeli soldiers, but he did say that Israeli soldiers were attacked first, and then followed it up with airstrikes, with 2 Israeli soldiers being killed and a dozen or several dozen Palestinians being killed from those airstrikes. Not talking about the fact that it was actually 80 airstrikes that have occurred since the ceasefire, right? Again, omission of information is just as equally damning as propaganda as shifting information or rewriting information to meet a specific criterion. It's disgusting. Apparently, JD was scheduled to visit in May, but the visit didn't happen, so this is his first visit. I have a video about Hamas killing its own people on 10/7. That doesn't help their narrative, though. I guess we'll have to watch it. Oh, okay. Then yes, we might have to watch that after this. Okay, so still, the vice president traveling to Israel is not a show of force by America. That's That's just, no. No matter how you slice it, if it was a show of force by America, then the violations of the ceasefire, the shellings, the airstrikes, those would cease immediately, right? If America was in control of Israel, then saying stop that would have worked the first time. That didn't happen. That has yet to happen. In fact, the only thing that has happened in this administration and for Israel has been getting more and more money and a mild, very, very mild amount of backlash, which is crazy because, again, that even that hint of backlash is more than what we got from a Democratic administration. Meaning, Democrats are to the right of Republicans when it comes to Israeli genocide. That is the state of American politics, where Democrats are actually to the right of Republicans when it comes to genocide. Right? Sure, fine, they don't like the fact that the National Guard is being deployed in their states, which is illegal anyway, or that ICE is terrorizing citizens, which in of itself is illegal, but you don't really hear the Democrats decrying the actions that are happening in red states or in states where it's not being heavily televised. Nope. It's only the campaigners that can talk about it where it's happening in their cities or their states. That's the only resistance from Democrats that we're seeing. And then sure, they're holding ground on healthcare during this shutdown. But are they? Why aren't they demanding more? If the shutdown is based off of extending the Affordable Care Act, then why not just go for broke? Demand universal healthcare and force the Republicans to say we will not open the government for universal healthcare. We will not open it for Medicare for all. Force them to say these words. But they're not, which is, again, complicity to this administration's domestic and foreign policies, and in many cases to the right of it. Well, let's talk about the occupation before the war. Right. 77 years ago, right after Nakba, and the forceful expulsion of residents from their homes, was there a Hamas then? No. And also the Israeli expansion from 1963 to the present day. Was there a Hamas then? That's the point. People don't want to talk about the fact that Israel has been colonizing Palestine since Palestine welcomed Holocaust survivors as refugees. Israel formed its state amongst the refugees, the Zionists, right? The Zionists formed the state of Israel from the refugees as an excuse, as a justification, and then immediately started turning against their saviors, their hosts. It's fucking disgusting. Like, Israeli history is as brutal and violent as American history and Manifest Destiny. But what makes it worse is that Israel is trying to use the cover of the Holocaust to justify it, whereas America just called it Manifest Destiny and said whatever the fuck.
Visit by the Vice President, J.D. Vance, is to advance these negotiations over the remaining points of the President's plan for Gaza. We're seeing that the ceasefire in Gaza is part of phase one, but we haven't seen those negotiations yet over the remaining points of the President's plan. And we all know that major obstacles remain, and one of them is about the future of Hamas. One of the key Israeli demands is that Hamas must disarm. The group so far has rejected it. There have been some threats from President Trump himself saying that if Hamas fails to do that voluntarily, that the Americans may employ force to achieve that.
Yeah, and then how's that going to work, right? Because we're already killing fishermen off of Venezuela and Colombia. It's already declared that there's a famine in Palestine that's man-made and deliberate, and that there's a genocide happening in Palestine that is man-made and deliberate, right? So American boots on the ground there, in addition to the war crimes of murdering fishermen off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia, now we're going to put American soldiers in Palestine and murdering Palestinians under the guise of targeting Hamas. So the fact that this is even being voiced out loud, again, proves who is in charge here. If America was actually in charge here, us putting our boots on the ground in Palestine would never be a talking point. For one. For two, if we were influential enough to deal with the negotiations and this, that, and the other, we wouldn't have to threaten Hamas. We would be able to hold Israel in check so that Hamas wouldn't feel obligated to fight back or fight in the first place, right? And again, that goes back even further to the 77 years that Razor was talking about. This is the final solution. We are witnessing what the final solution would have looked like if it had been televised in 4K over the course of 2 years, rather than hidden in concentration camps out of seeing prying eyes. Israel is doing what the U.S. claims Latino immigrants want to do here. Right. And America is doing it to Colombian and Venezuelan fishermen off of their own coastal, sovereign coastal waters. I won't say anyone is deceived at the moment, as they all see Israeli crimes, but they like it, so why discuss a group of criminals who lack any shred of humanity? Yeah. So, I mean, that's the point. Complicity. America is complicit in Israel's genocide, and Israel is pulling the strings in American politics to ensure that they have a cover to continue on with the genocide. And the fact that it was a Democratic administration that allowed that to happen in the first place, was the ones that perpetrated it, the ones that allowed it to exist, is damning as fuck. I hope Biden is alive when I take office, because I want to see his face, whether he has dementia or not, when he is condemned to death for aiding and abetting a genocide.
It really shows how difficult these negotiations are going to be, these talks are going to be. The Israeli government has said it will not engage in negotiations until all bodies of deceased hostages are returned.
And see, that's a bullshit argument too. The bodies are buried under rubble because the Israelis have been airstriking Palestinian land for 2 fucking years. First of all, even if you were to find the bodies, some of them would probably start to decompose so egregiously you wouldn't even be able to tell or know which body belonged to what. That's part of the fucking problem. And so because those bodies haven't been returned, Israel continues to airstrike and attack. And of course Hamas is going to fight back at that point, because effectively the hostilities haven't ended.
15 bodies are still in Gaza, still, need to be returned to Israel. So it shows how fragile this process is and how difficult these negotiations are going to be.
Hugo, for now, thanks very much.
Deliberately.
We are expecting a news conference.
By design. So, you said we had another video about that. At the bottom. Okay, maybe you just added it there because I don't see it quite just yet. Okay, so you spread out the videos really well this time. Thank you. Man, a lot of these are also extremely fucking depressing, though. Yeah, let's talk about Germany.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz is taking on the AfD, but why now?
Diese Partei will die CDU erklärtermaßen zerstören. Sie will ein anderes Land.
Not everyone in his party thinks it's a good idea. The AfD is now neck and neck with the CDU-CSU in nationwide polls and poised to win big in 2 state elections next year. Merz.
That's not good. I'm just gonna say it. Like that's not good. Das ist nicht gut. The AfD wants its own country. They are the MAGA of Germany. And what we are seeing MAGA doing is exactly what Hitler did in 1939 Germany. And those same ideals are shared by the AfD. the fact that Germany is once again failing the open book test that they fucking wrote is deeply, deeply, deeply disturbing. And again, the polls are suggesting that centrism and liberalism is neck and neck with alt-right Nazi, literal Nazi level fascism. Again, I never thought I would see in my lifetime Americans deployed, soldiers deployed in American cities. I never thought in my lifetime I would watch military members murder civilians without even an attempt of justification, right? Global war on terrorism notwithstanding. The rise of fascism just generally, I just did not think I would see that in my lifetime. And here we are, day after day, week after week, seeing examples of how even countries that absolutely know better, that should know better, that have gone out of their way to do better, are still failing their open book test. That is fucking disturbing as shit.
Just held a high-stakes meeting with CDU leaders on how to respond to the AfD's surge in popularity. There are 3 strategies that they could try. First, drop the firewall, an end to the convention of refusing to cooperate with the AfD. A former CDU leader argued voters are tired of excluding a party from lawmaking. Second, push for a ban, legally challenge the AfD as anti-constitutional. This is controversial and faces lots of legal hurdles. Third, go on the attack. That's the Merz approach. Define the AfD as the main opponent and confront them directly.
Sie stellt alle Grundentscheidungen in Frage, die auch von uns mitgeprägt worden sind. Und deswegen ist die von der AfD immer wieder bemühte ausgestreckte Hand in Wahrheit eine Hand, die uns vernichten will.
The AfD welcomes the debate about cooperation.
Of course they did, because again, the only reason why right-wing extremism ever gains credibility is because it's given credibility. If your racist uncle was talking about N-word this and S-word that and sand N-word this at the dinner table, and you tried to engage with them, okay, fine, let's talk about this. Why do you hate black people so much? Why do you hate the Muslims? And then they get to talk, and then you try and justify it. Okay, let's say all of these things is true. Then what do you propose we do about it? Well, then I think we should, okay, why should we do that? Now you're giving them an actual platform. Instead of saying, shut the fuck up, Uncle George, Uncle Henry, Uncle Tom. Like, fuck you, you racist fuck. And for a very long time in world culture, society, that was the response to Nazism, to racism, to discrimination, to bigotry. Shut the fuck up. And instead, we're debating them. Now, I said it was good to attack them. I didn't realize that what they were talking about was in the marketplace of ideas. Because again, that's how Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and all these fucktards were given any sort of credibility in the first place, because legitimate people with credibility and credentials debated them and took them seriously, gave them a legitimate platform, legitimized their rhetoric, and then it exploded. It's like, well, shit, if they went on CNN or Fox News and got to talk, then they must be legitimate. They must be worth listening. And then they became the standard. They became the authority. You cannot give an inch to fascism. You cannot give an inch to discrimination, to bigotry, to any of these right-wing nonsense ideologies. You cannot give it a single molecule of oxygen to breathe. Or this happens. What Hitler did was wrong, but he was clear and not hypocritical like present-day Germany, which supports and feels sorrow for Israel that does the same thing. I mean, I'll grant you that. Ben Shapiro is shit. Did you see him when he said Mamdani is pro-jihad? He didn't even know what jihad actually means. But that's my point. Ben Shapiro was given a platform. He was given the opportunity to be an authority. He debated credible authorities, credible persons, politicians, journalists, reporters, whatever. he debated them, and with his condescending attitude, his viewership crowned him the king and the winner, even when he is batshit stupid, right? He is absolutely wrong. He doesn't know what jihad is. He is talking out of his ass. He is being racist. But that's the point. Because he now has a platform and a large audience and influence with that platform and audience, people treat him as an authority rather than the schmuck, the grifting schmuck that he is. Because he was given the opportunity at some point in the past that allowed him to capitalize. See, I failed to capitalize on my 5 minutes of fame. When I ran for DNC chair, I didn't know how to market myself. And I didn't want to because I thought that was icky. Like, I didn't think that's what a politician should do. And guess what? It burned me. For the past 10 years, I've been struggling to rebuild my platform that I absolutely held in my hand after the DNC chair race. The difference is I wasn't a sellout grifting son of a bitch. Shapiro is. That Charlie Kirk was. Jihad literally means defending against your enemy, and this is permitted under international law. Of course, I will not let my enemy kill me while I stand still. No, I mean, I'm not arguing with you. Like, I'm not arguing with you. We are on the same page. But the point is, if you give credibility to extremist rhetoric, like the AFD, like Ben Shapiro, like MAGA, it only grows from there because it will then take more. It'll be like, oh great, you gave me this platform, I will now fight for this next platform. And if I don't get it, I will use that failure to my advantage by blaming them for cowardice. And then when I get condemned, it's like, I'm not afraid of you, I'm just not going to platform you. Then that's more fuel to the fire. Giving them room to breathe, to speak and to be heard, that is the problem. That is speech that needs to be crushed, suppressed even. Go ahead. You're not for the First Amendment then. No. I am not for hate speech. I am not for fascism. I'm not for right-wing extremism. That speech is violence incarnate. And that should be treated as the crime that it is, as the threat that it is. And you do have the right to say it, but that doesn't mean you have the right from repercussions. That does not make you immune to accountability. So, and it doesn't guarantee you a platform. And that's what I'm talking about. Eliminating the platform for these nonsense talking points. What should we call Israel then? The Peaceful Defense Army? I mean, I think they kind of do call themselves that. It's the IDF. It's the Israeli Defense Force, right? They are already claiming that their military actions are defense. So, just to facilitate, like, highlight how easy it is to capitalize on being given a platform.
Dafür rückt rasch näher. Auch in Teilen der CDU beginnt bereits das Umdenken.
But for the CDU, working...
They're doing a victory lap because, now they're challenging us because they view us as a threat. So, not great. What they should do is option 2, which is banning the AFD under existing German law, which is if you're going to be a Nazi and say Nazi things, you go to fucking prison. All right. All right, let's... another Latin American country, Peru.
Peru's president has declared a 30-day state of emergency in the capital Lima, aimed at curbing rising crime. Jose Herri made the announcement in a televised address. It follows protests last week that left one person dead and more than 100 injured. Jesus. A wave of demonstrations against corruption and crime led to the ousting of Herri's predecessor, Dina Boluarte, last month.
Wow.
Compatriotas. Fellow citizens, crime has grown excessively in recent years, causing enormous pain to thousands of families and also harming the country's progress. But this is over. Today we begin to change history in the fight against insecurity in Peru.
Well, Al Jazeera's Mariana Sanchez joins us live now from Lima.
So, dude has had 30 days to try and solve these problems, and granted, 30 days is a long time, but it's also not a long time if you didn't have a plan to deal with it in the first place. Like, for instance, I want to federalize all law enforcement in America. I want to hold them to a federal standard. I want to hold them to a federal standard that is also transparent. And then I want to enforce those standards within and without the federal police forces. And then I want to restructure the police forces to being focused on actual investigations. Because crime prevention, again, is something that is economic in nature. But the crime from organized crime, that does need to be addressed directly because they're entrenched and they are actively committing crimes. Whereas things like theft and poverty that drive people to these cartels or to these gangs or these organizations can easily be resolved with economic changes, right? So on day one, if I were to declare a state of emergency for 30 days, I could immediately implement a plan. Okay, we're going to federalize the police. Those who resist go to prison. And then we go from there, right? These are the standards. Those will have already been written. Those will be applied and disseminated. Everybody's grandfathered in. If you fail to adhere to the standards, you will also suffer the aforementioned consequences, right? So, like day one, you can immediately start taking action. Will there be pushback? Will there be backlash? Will there be resistance? Sure, maybe, but it's still a plan. And this guy does not seem like he had a plan when he took office. We even have some Philippines. Peru has had like 3 presidents in the last couple of years. Well, at least their democracy is functioning because presidents are being ousted instead of being given reins of power that they do not need or deserve or should have at all. Europe used to say that human rights were important and boasted about it. They also attacked Qatar under the pretext of the workers who died because of the World Cup. But now these same people are defunding Israel and abandoning the principles they had set. Or defending, yeah. Well, that and Israel attacked Qatar during negotiations with Hamas and Palestine. So, yeah, no, European hypocrisy is definitely showing its whole ass this year.
Mariana, so the government had already warned that this state of emergency was coming to Lima. Tell us about the announcement and what it means, Mariana.
That's right. Jose Hedi spoke for just less than 1 minute in a very short announcement where he said that many families have suffered a lot with criminality, but his government will go from the defensive to the offensive with a series of measures, beginning with the announcement of a 30-day state of emergency. And this will come with a series of measures that will accompany that he has said that will be effective measures. The police will be in control of the capital, Lima, with the support of the army. But of course...
So, citizens, let me see if I got this right. Citizens, your fearless leader hears your words and your cries of outrage. And I'm here to tell you that I have a plan. That plan is to unite the military and our police and march on our capital city together. Are you fucking serious? That's your plan. That's your... Guys, I already have a plan for law enforcement. All right? In dealing with civil unrest. It's literally right here. It is literally on this screen. In fact, it's perfectly aligned with the federalization, adherence, demilitarization, refocus on criminal issues. Oh, wait, I guess I should look over here so it looks right for the stream. And then federal funding for the federal police program, right? Notice also federalization of standards, right? Curriculum, standardization of use of force, adherence. Develop clear and robust ramifications for a violation of any of the above to be integrated into the database for personnel, and establish a national blacklist registry for officers whose violations incurred termination actions to ensure that they can never hold positions within the criminal justice system ever again. Right? Establish independent oversight boards. Require the use of body cams. Any attempts to delay or tamper will result in the immediate termination of that individual and charges of crimes against humanity and subsequent penalties. Right? I thought I wrote a bunch of things about seeking the death penalty, but that might have been Israel. That might have been support of genocide with Israel. I thought, oh, here it is. Bam. Any existing equipment that could fail under this provision or fall under shall be forfeited within 30 days of inauguration day, or have CONUS forces forcibly remove said assets, arrest all members of the agency involved in preventing the forfeiture, which shall incur charges of insurrection and crimes against humanity with a focus on seeking the death penalty, right? That's a plan. That tells the people that we will have a strong police presence. They will have training. They will have standards. They will be held accountable, right? But they will have a very specific, clearly defined job to do. So fear not, citizens. If you see an officer, they are and will be held to the confines of their job. And if not, dear citizen, report them so we can take care of business. That's how you fucking reassure a population that is rioting due to corruption and police brutality. Jesus H. Christ. Europe used to say... Oh, wait, no, we already talked about that one. I really feel that this generation of politicians will be better than the previous one. The old generation could step aside because they have destroyed many things that could have been preserved. Well, it's just like the saying goes. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create strong times, but weak men. And then weak men inherit strong times and cause weak times to occur. And then bad times, once again, caused by weak men, cause strong men to occur. That's probably not the right phrasing, but it's the idea that the silent generation created the economy that the boomer generation inherited. The boomer generation benefited from that entire process and continuously shut the doors behind them for every generation to follow, while still maintaining the reins of power and control throughout, bringing us to the brink of economic dire straits that we are in today globally. With my generation being the oldest but youngest generation to be able to even do something about this. Because again, you have to be 30 years old to run for Senate. You have to be 35 years old to run for president. So because Trump won, that means the youngest millennials that can run for office for the 2029 cycle is literally my age group and 4 years younger. So we're the first and even this, we're the youngest but first generation of the new generation to actually be able to even go after the reins of power, to wrest them from the boomer class and lay them to rest once and for all. That's just the rub. That's how shitty things have gotten.
The constitutional rights of the people will be suspended during these 30 days. This comes at a time when people are furious and many protests, as you were saying.
Let's hear that again. Maybe I misheard. Did she say that during this time, the citizens' constitutional rights will be suspended?
The support of the army, but of course, the constitutional rights of the people will be suspended.
Citizens, I am going to partner the police with the military and take away your constitutional rights for the next 30 days while my administration deals with this crisis. Like, here is my boot. If you don't lick it, it will stomp on your testicles, or neck, or ovaries, or a combination thereof. Bro, are you fucking kidding me? Also, if he's doing this, And other countries are doing this across the world because civil unrest is on the major rise, even here in the United States. This is what Trump is doing. He is uniting law enforcement, federal agencies, and the military and trying to normalize it. America's obviously a lot bigger than Peru, and America isn't currently rioting in the United States. But it is all leading to this similar thing where he can declare a state of emergency, suspend the Constitution, and implement martial law. We are heading that direction. Whether or not we are willing to head that direction as citizens doesn't matter. He is going to create the chaos and violence that will justify it, as we are seeing by deploying the National Guard in more and more cities in more and more states. Yeah, it's a loop that is repeated in principle, but it varies depending on the circumstances. And that is exactly right.
During these 30 days, this comes at a time when people are furious, and many protests, as you were saying, in the capital and also in other parts of the country, that left one protester dead and many people injured, including police. Now, this happened last week. This is only 10 days into Jose Geri's term in office, and he wants to appear that he is strong and determined to fight crime, but people are furious. They will not be able to protest because of the state of emergency, but the homicides are rising and the number of extortions are continuing to rise. There's been more than 18,000 reports of extortions only this year. That's up 30% from last year. So the big question, Darren, will be if former President Dina Boluarte in less than 3 years declared more than 10 states of emergency and nothing worked, well, what will be different now, and will that work?
All right.
Well, and the fact that she out loud said, the people will not be allowed to protest due to the state of emergency. Like, buddy, to quote JFK, those who make peaceful protest impossible make violent revolution inevitable. What are you doing? What are you fucking doing? I am strong and I'm willing to lead by crushing your dissent. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And we have a ban evader. Congratulations. How did he evade the banning? I mean, I do want to restrict, so how the fuck? What's the point of banning somebody to include circumventing the account if they can just make another account anyway from the same IP and then do belligerent shit like this? That's not the point. Hassan followers, blind sheep. Like, I get that. That's not the point. The point is, I already banned him yesterday when he was Hamas Mamdani. So, anyway. I was just a little quicker than Anna on that because I happened to look at chat. Anyway, oh shit. That's why you brought up the Philippines, because that's next. There is severe civil unrest globally in 2025.
While people are dying, people's homes are getting flooded, people are losing their livelihoods, their properties, students are not able to go to school. These politicians, as well as the contractors of these public works projects, they're making billions of pesos in kickbacks.
Kung paano kayo ninakawan nitong mga ito, I want to hold these people accountable.
It appears that this is systematic corruption in the culture of the government, and it's just been more brazen. I'm Barnaby Lowe, a correspondent based in Manila.
I mean, again, the corruption that's become more and more brazen. How does it get more brazen than demolitioning the east wing of the White House to build a ballroom that is being funded by billionaire donors to gain favor with the president who has already used the office of the president to shill Tesla vehicles on the fucking White House lawn, hosted a fucking UFC fight on the White House lawn, accepted a $400 million gift from a foreign country, and is going to spend billions of taxpayer dollars to retrofit it and then keep it after the presidency. Like, brazen fucking corruption doesn't even begin to define what's happening in the United States.
Between us, as someone born and raised in the Philippines, this country has witnessed 2 mass uprisings over corruption, and I fear they won't be the last.
Oh, I thought this meant between us as in between the United States. Yeah, so we'll watch a little bit more of this. Notice that the Philippines, I think that part of the world, like, because this is happening in Africa and in Pacific Island nations, I think for whatever reason, the pirate flag has a greater symbol of freedom and rebellion than it does in the United States, because I think those countries that are using the flag were more seafaring peoples and dealt with piracy and the romanticization that would be obviously associated with it. Whereas when you think of the Pirates of the Caribbean, that's still not Florida. Even though the United States of America was fully a country and could have been part of the pirates, you know, during that era, it was never part of our culture and society like it would have been in the Bahamas, the Caribbean in general, or these coastal countries or island nations. So I'm beginning to wonder if that's why the Straw Hats are more prominent there than in, say, Europe and America.
There were several protests all throughout the country. A lot of the people that we spoke with were actually at protests in 1986 and then in 2001. So those 2 mass uprisings ousted 2 corrupt leaders. And they told us nothing has changed. And so they're even angrier right now because everything that they've done in the past have been for nothing.
Which goes to show that peaceful protest can implement regime change. It absolutely can. But unless you tear out the cancer of capitalism, unless you tear out corruption and install brakes, actual true levers to immediately oust corrupt actors, right? Like, if you even attempt, if you get so much as a penny in a kickback for a public works program, immediately go to jail. Do not cross-go, do not collect any sort of support. You go immediately to jail. No trial, straight to jail, right? These are the checks and the balances that do not exist in any nation's constitution or amendments to those constitutions, because politicians then wouldn't be able to be corrupt, goony motherfuckers, and they would actually have to represent the people. And where's the money and fun in that, right? But that's how you fix these problems. And that's literally accountability. Is it one of the tabs that is already open? No. Oh, why do I have that open twice? Well, that's convenient because now I can just go to the issues page and then accountability for reforms. I think it was that one. Just want to make sure it was that one. Oh, this is another one. Yeah. Well, maybe I broke it down into several others. Okay, that's cool. All right, so ethical, moral, and physical standards, right? Ethical and moral standards. Complete prohibition on religious doctrine, faith, beliefs, or affiliation to be mentioned, campaigned upon, or otherwise utilized to facilitate the promotion of their candidacies duties while in office, or any other official acts, right? No more Christian nationalism. None of that shit. And if America ever became predominantly Islamic or Judaic or fucking Nordic, I don't give a shit. None of that. Religious zealotry has no place in politics. So on and so forth. These standards shall be universal for any appointment, election, elected position, or official titles, activities, or designation at any level of government that is under the bounds of the U.S. Constitution, which would be everything. Examples of the prohibited acts will result in prosecution per this provision include, but are not limited to, racism, sexism, transphobia, promoting genocide, xenophobia, Christian nationalism, Nazism, Zionism, threats of doxing or doxing of competitors, spreading of misinformation, promoting misinformation, undermining public institutions that the individual has vested private equity interest in, insider trading, using their offices or influence for personal gain, and of course your regular criminal activities. Will result in, charges in violation to the appropriate laws or constitutional amendments or articles, crimes against humanity, subversive acts, domestic terrorism, undermining public safety, and any other applicable or relevant crime up to and including war crimes, crimes against humanity, as outlined by the Geneva Conventions, with a mandatory minimum sentence of life without the possibility of parole, with the preference for the death penalty. That, right there, is how you fucking stop corruption after your revolution. You put in a fucking hard break with clear ramifications. And then you follow fucking through. What are these other ones? Money in politics. Money in politics, especially Citizens United, shall be deemed illegal, and any attempts to codify or undermine this policy shall be similarly treated as illegal. No donations of any value or form shall be tolerated. Redefine lobbying and all this fun stuff to be bribery, election tampering, fraud, and generally undermining the integrity of our Constitution. PACs and super PACs, illegal. Attempts to undermine shall also be illegal. Now, I didn't go by claiming that it should be met with life sentences and death penalty, but I can always add that. In fact, let me add some notes. Perfect. My problem with these people is that they talk without knowing what's going on, with no actions, of course. I mean, why did the Philippines elect Marcos' son as president? The son of a president that was extremely corrupt and had to flee to Hawaii. I mean, that is true. Did we talk about the Nazi running for Congress? Well, technically, when we say Congress, we mean House. But technically, you're talking about the Nazi running for Senate. And that would be tomorrow on Recap Thursdays, because that story broke after our Taco Tuesdays. But thank you for bringing that up, True Steel. We will 100% be talking about that. Anyway, we should give the new generation of politicians a chance because they already know the problem, so we need to change the corrupt politicians. Right. But unfortunately, unless you can get the platform and the message out there, and of course these news networks aren't going to undermine their own power base, it becomes extremely difficult to convince the electorate, which is primarily older generations, unfortunately, to vote for younger generations because they view us as children and therefore incompetent and incapable of leadership. So unless you're very lucky and able to market yourself, or you have a platform, or you're really good at canvassing and getting involved in the community stuff, the likelihood of you convincing older generations to vote for younger generations is very slim, because we have been propagandized to believe that. On top of the fact that it is difficult to vote for somebody and support the person if you don't know that they exist. So we don't have left-leaning organization. We don't have support systems. We don't have infrastructure or institutions that can help left-wing candidates, because every time something like that comes up, it immediately gets co-opted or destroyed by the Democrats. All right, carrying on with the Philippines.
All this began back in July when there was widespread flooding in large parts of the country. The rains have been incessant, they have been relentless. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. delivered his State of the Nation address. And in that speech, he highlighted these flood control projects, which he hinted might be substandard and might be corruption-ridden. He called a press conference, and I was in that press conference actually. And you know, back then I didn't know how big this story was going to be, but it snowballed from there. So from there, he said that he would form an independent commission to look into these flood control projects. There were separate inquiries at the House.
And then the commission was in cahoots.
These were both public spectacle. They went on for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours even.
Sometimes you have to bend the law.
The problem was that politicians were allegedly involved in these anomalous flood control projects. So basically, they were investigating themselves. But the revelations were shocking, to say the least. Witnesses were saying they were delivering luggage full of cash to these lawmakers.
That's standard practice in our office.
It's also the ostentatious display.
Mr. Ronan, Congressman Ronan, here's your briefcase of money for the flooding protection services project in Ohio. Have a nice day. Oh, thank you. I'll see you next Tuesday. Yes, sir. And then next Tuesday rolls around. Congressman Ronan, here's your another suitcase of cash for the flooding works program in Ohio. It's like, oh, thank you, Jimmy. Hey, how's the missus doing? How are the kids enjoying school? Oh, they're doing great, Congressman. Like, what? What? Again, that's why my whole thing about ethics. Sam, you can't just execute everyone who breaks the law. Au contraire, mon ami. Au contraire. I can kill them all. I can unalive them with the guillotine, with the baguette, with the props. We can do it in the morning. We can do it in the afternoon. We can do it with tea or with coffee. We can do it after our cigarette break. We can do it in the evening, over the TV and the dinner. We can execute these criminals whenever and however we please. For they are the criminals, and they were told, if you do this, you will be executed. And they chose to do it anyway. So, however, that would make me an extremely brutal president in the United States of America. But the thing is, if we don't take those actions where there are immediate responses to acts of corruption, to acts of discrimination, or the attempt to codify criminal activity into legal law, right? If we don't hold the Emoluments Clause accountable, if we don't do these things, right, then as we are seeing a corrupt enough administration with enough support in the different branches can just blitz the judicial system and undermine it in appeals, and then do all of their corrupt criminal activity anyway. So unless you have a mechanism that the second they do the bad thing, they get axed, then you don't have a true checks and balance. What you have is a puzzle for them to solve so that they can get around the mechanisms that would otherwise hold them accountable. So where are we at? Okay, we have 52 minutes left. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on time, actually. We actually made it fairly well down the stream. We had a couple of, we covered, I think, a lot more broad topics than we have usually. Normally we get hung up on a couple because I lose my ever-loving shit. But here we go. Katie Halper, the video that Anna was talking about earlier. 13 days ago. I guess we didn't get to it last week.
Hi, Dr. Mearsheimer. It's a pleasure. The first question I wanted to ask you was actually about what your thoughts are right now as we are commemorating the 2-year anniversary. I don't even know if we can call it that, the 2-year mark of...
Why would you even say commemorating? Katie, what's wrong? What's going on here? Like, language, phrasing. Yikes.
October 7th.
Every day has been horrific, right? Today it's just they've ramped up the the propaganda. I had to once again we're having to hear these sensational stories that have been debunked over and over and over of beheaded babies. Even Netanyahu was going on talking about Hamas burned babies and beheaded men and women. I mean, it's just a lie, and everybody in the mainstream, whether it's politicians or media personalities, keep repeating it. And
which again proves that Israel is the one with the power. If you have multiple countries repeating the same lie after it has been exposed as being a lie, who controls the propaganda? Who's controlling the lie? Israel. So the fact that Israel is literally the Illuminati, but out front, out in the open, is crazy to me, because you have all these conspiracy theories like, oh, there's the shadow government of rich people, the shadow government of world dominating genocide, baby killing, child molesting leaders, and it's like, no, that's just Israel. And they had an island where they were meeting before, but now they're meeting at Mar-a-Lago instead. So like, and the fact that the conspiracy theorists aren't just jumping and bending back over themselves and crawling over each other to point at Israel as the scary shadow government of the world is absolutely insane to me, given what we are witnessing in real time.
Either they know they're lying or they don't read. And I don't know which is worse. This just kind of this sinister mendacity or ignorance. And also the other lies too. The tweet by Mamdani on this day about Hamas killing 1,100 people. And again, it's like, get your facts straight. I mean, 2 years on and they still don't have their facts straight. And
did she just throw Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani, the New York City mayor that everybody is falling in love with? Did she just throw him like straight under the bus and called him out for his brazen audacity? Wow. Susan. Netanyahu, Hamas killed 10 children, even though it's not true. Netanyahu has killed more than 10,000 children. They say that the population of Palestine has dropped by nearly 25% or more, and that there are at least 60,000 reported dead, and of those, it would be primarily children anyway. So, yeah.
And there have been reports, there have been studies about that day, although there still has never been an investigation, right? Despite all this October 7th, not a single actual independent investigation has been conducted. But what we do know is that Israel, that all of those burned out those cars that they parade as crimes of Hamas, all of the burned out houses, that was all conducted primarily by Israeli Apache helicopters. There were 28 of them at least that had to reload their ammunition at least once. And I think they contain like 21,000 rounds of fire. And we know that they killed at least hundreds, according to Haaretz. We know that Israel initially said it was, I think the first estimate was 2,200. Then they said 2,000. And then they downgraded it to 1,200. And then it downgraded to 1,139. And then they just kind of rounded it up to 1,200. And that has been the narrative. So I can't stand these factual inaccuracies.
So, Anna, do me a quick favor. You don't have to add the video to the stream, but can you find the Harrods video? I believe it's spelled like this. I think that's how it's spelled. Can you find the video that she's referencing? Because I would like to keep that in my stream links tabs.
Which, you know, upon which our genocide is predicated. I mean, these stories, these sensational stories of beheaded babies, of mass rape, and it's just, I mean, these are the things that manufactured popular consent for the just wanton slaughter of Palestinians throughout Gaza, in a display of savagery that is, and sadism that is truly unprecedented. And
that's the thing. There are reports disproving that the October 7th attack was when history began. There's also Nakba, which no one talks about. Nobody talks about the occupation of Palestine for the past 77 years. Nobody talks about the fact that Fidel and Che Guevara both were talking about it in the fucking 60s, and the 70s, and the 80s, right? There have been revolutionary leaders that have been talking about Palestine since the friggin' 50s. Decade and every decade in between. So the fact that there is all of this historical evidence that Israel has been committing atrocities against Palestinians, that this has been the longest ongoing genocide in history, and everybody continues to talk about October 7th and parroting the Israeli narrative, and you don't want to point at Israel as the shadow government of the world? Like, what's fucking wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you?
In human history, as far as I understand.
I was just curious what you, kind of piggybacking on what Susan just said, what your thoughts on what we know and what we don't know about what happened on October 7th, and if there's have been any updates since you and I spoke about this last, which is, I think, a year ago.
Well, I think we have a pretty good sense of what the general picture looks like. I think everything that Susan said is correct. And I think we don't know the number of Israelis who were killed by the Israeli forces. And you want to remember, it was not just the Hannibal Doctrine. The fact is that the Israelis got caught.
So again, the Hannibal Doctrine is why it was the military, the Israeli military, that committed these acts against the civilians, right? The Hannibal Doctrine, which he'll probably explain, literally is an Israeli military doctrine that says, in order to deny the enemy hostages or anything else, we will kill you. We will kill you rather than risk you becoming a hostage of the enemy. And sure enough, Hamas had hostages for the past 2 years from Israel regardless. So, again, Israel went after the attack happened and used military ordnance against these fleeing, desperate concert goers, and then has been lying about it for the past 2 years. I'm going to let him continue.
Completely by surprise, and they did not have a very good backup plan. So what they did was they rushed in massive firepower, and they used that firepower to attack Hamas and the other Palestinian forces that had moved into Israel proper. And they killed a significant number of people, not with the Hannibal Doctrine, but just with all that firepower that was brought to bear against Hamas and other Palestinians who were intermingled with all sorts of Israelis. Then there's the whole issue of the Hannibal Doctrine, because as we know, the Palestinians were bent on taking many of their captured Israelis back to Gaza. And the Hannibal Doctrine calls for killing those people before they get there. So some Israelis were killed as a result of the Hannibal Doctrine. And then you want to remember, on top of all that, it's consistent with international law for Hamas to try to break out of the concentration camp and to...
I am so glad John Mearsheimer said this because we have been talking, that was one of the first things we were talking about when we were streaming about Israeli genocide against Palestinians, even last year, around April, May timeframe. That was one of the first things we started covering about it when we started streaming again. And I probably don't have it in stream links, but nope, that's not that at all. Anyway, it's the actual Geneva Convention's provision that states any occupied people has the intrinsic right to self-defense, to overthrow their oppressor. And that is what he is talking about. And that is exactly what Hamas is. That's why it's not a gotcha question to ask me if I support Hamas. I'm like, yes, I support Hamas's rights under the United Nations to overthrow their oppressors, the Israeli Defense Forces. Why don't they understand that even those who say October 7 is the reasons don't really know the history of Israel and the occupation of Palestine? I mean, that's true. They're talking about it, but why aren't the regular news reporters doing that? That's 100% correct. The emergence of its liberator. They believe that by destroying the surrounding countries and establishing Greater Israel. Right. That's all Zionism is establishing Greater Israel and becoming the promised land of God. To hell with the consequences. And the consequences are clearly, in this case, genocide of the Palestinian people.
Engage Israeli military forces in combat, which means they're going to kill some of them. So the fact that they killed Israeli soldiers is not a case of murder. Now, there were clearly Israeli civilians who were murdered. I'd be willing to bet in the final analysis, however, that Hamas did not murder many of those Israeli civilians. But be that as it may, whoever murdered those civilians, and in my mind committed a war crime. But I think that most of the Israelis who were killed were either soldiers, who I think are legitimate targets, or they were civilians who were killed by the Israeli forces. I think you cannot underestimate how many Israelis were killed when all that firepower was brought to bear. And if you look at a lot of the pictures and you listen to what happened.
Yeah, and again, Hamas doesn't have napalm. Hamas doesn't have the kind of ordnance that could do this to an entire parking lot. Because if they did, if Hamas had the kind of munitions necessary to cause this kind of destruction, they wouldn't have been losing the fight. They would have been able to literally breach Israeli bases with that kind of firepower. Because that is literally Hellfire missiles, that's napalm, that's mortars, that's RPGs, that's high temperature incendiary rounds. Hamas has small arms fire at best. They have the real versions of this prop. And no, I don't care how good of a shot you are, you're going to explode one car, and that is not going to explode an entire fucking parking lot. It's just not. And then they're not going to burn at such high temperatures to where it what do you call that? It's it turns the steel frames of vehicles to ash and melts the carbon fiber. Fuel doesn't burn that hot.
It's quite clear that those Apache helicopters really wreaked havoc on everything that was down on the ground. And of course, that included Israeli civilians. So I think we have a pretty good sense of what happened. Now, is that reported in the Western media? As Susan was saying before, of course it isn't. The stories that you hear in the Western media, are basically a reflection of Israeli propaganda.
I'm not just saying it. Johnny is saying it too. I'm just saying it's not just me, right? I'm not just sitting here on stream like, hey, chat, I got great ideas. No, I am literally conveying the same things that these experts are saying. Because we were saying them before the experts were able to confirm that they were happening, but we were saying this last year, this time ago. and sooner, actually. Well, no, because I wasn't streaming in October of last. But that's not the point. We were talking about the Hannibal Directive, the rights to self-defense, and how the destruction that occurred could not have happened from a poorly equipped defense force. So, for once, a Palestine-Israel video that, although not happy, because there isn't much happy to go around, unless we're talking about the country of Palestine prior to occupation, this is at least a refreshing video in which people are genuinely talking from a position of authority and knowledge that what is happening and what is being justified is a manufactured consent propaganda of Israel being distributed through just about every single Western outlet on planet Earth. I see that Israel is the barbaric and evil one here. I haven't seen any Hamas soldiers targeting innocent civilians and killing them, while Israel does that even to Israeli captives. Yeah, exactly. By every single measurable metric, even if Hamas were terrorists, they are conducting war and combat in a far more ethical and moral way than a sovereign nation with a fully functioning military. So, even apples to apples, claiming that Hamas is an organized military versus Israel's organized military, Israel is wantonly committing war crimes. Literally bragging about it in 4K, and Hamas is desperately trying to keep prisoners of war alive. Like, who's the more, what's the word? The relatable or empathetic group out of that scenario? A country we haven't talked about very often on stream, Egypt.
His country, along with Qatar, has been a crucial mediator between Gaza and Israel. For President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, this is a moment he has been waiting for, building strong relations with the West as his country stands at the forefront of the international push to shape post-war Gaza. A fragile ceasefire agreement is holding. US President Trump attended the Sharm el-Sheikh.
Al Jazeera, how are you lying to us right now? The ceasefire is not holding. Israel has not stopped attacking Gaza at all, at any point in time in the past 2 years. Arguably in the past 77 years. So, like, how do you have the brazenness to say that the ceasefire is holding? Even the detainees admit that Hamas treats them well. Some even said that they shared food with them. Exactly. The detainees are even singing Hamas's praises. Like, if they were such an evil band of miscreants, the hostages would not be talking good about them, right? You once you are released, you're not beholden to them. Like, you're just not. Like, if Al-Qaeda captures you and then releases you, and threatens your remaining relatives or whatever, unless you sing Al-Qaeda's praises, sure, fine. But, like, that's not what's happening because Hamas doesn't have the reach to do that anyway. So these people are legitimately stating that Hamas legitimately treated them like human beings to the point of even sharing their food with them. Meanwhile, every single Palestinian detainee by Israel was literally missing limbs because of the sheer amount of abuse and torture and starvation that they endured under Israeli control. Again, the sheer amount of crimes, of war crimes and crimes against humanity that Israel has committed, openly and brazenly, compared to Hamas, which is being praised by the detainees, should in of itself be the sign, except that's not what is reported. The only reason why we're reporting it is because we're looking for it, and we are finding it, and there are days where it is a struggle to find that information, because it is constantly buried because these outlets are controlled by the very same powers and entities that are being fed the propaganda by Zionist Israel. Again, there is a board member from Israeli intelligence on TikTok, and I think Meta as well. So, like, when we talk about the algorithm literally silencing dissent for Palestine or silencing dissent against whatever other organization that Israel doesn't want, we're not making this shit up. Zionists are literally in these boards, literally defining the terms and conditions and literally determining how the algorithm works. The fact that I have viewers at all is a testament to y'all's interest in politics. So, all of which is to say, Hamas committed to Trump's agreement for the sake of its people, but guess what? Israel is violating the agreement for the umpteenth time, and Trump isn't doing shit about it, which is, again, more and more evidence that America has no control over Israel and that it's, in fact, the opposite.
Sheikh Peace Summit last week, a gesture widely interpreted as a recognition of Egypt's role. Here, in Brussels, Sisi will meet EU leaders to talk about politics and business as well.
I think there's no doubt that Gaza will be on top of the agenda, also the future of Gaza, what the EU can do, should do, and also what role Egypt will play. I mean, do not forget that if the border is going to open in Rafah, so the fear of, again, migration coming from Gaza to Europe is no doubt going to be a topic. As
fear, and it goes back to the fascism, the racism at the very least. Oh, there's too many immigrants and refugees in Germany and France and Spain and Portugal. Well, motherfucker, maybe you shouldn't be supporting Israel's genocide and you won't have refugees from Syria, from Iran, from Palestine, and from other neighboring countries, Libya, coming into Europe trying to flee the bloodshed. Maybe if you didn't support genocide and funded it, and gave guns and bombs to it, maybe you wouldn't be dealing with a refugee crisis, because guess what? People generally don't like leaving where they grew up, because, and especially not for a country that hates them. People generally don't decide, you know what? I'm an American. I grew up in BFE, Ohio. And I really, really, really hate Democrats. You know where I'm going to move? New York City. And then I'm going to make New York City pay for it. That's not how that fucking works. That is just not how that works. People do not want to leave their homelands. Granted, nationalism notwithstanding, but generally people do not leave from where they were born. People just generally don't do that. They stay. They might travel here, there, and some other places, but like the idea of leaving one's country other than for vacation is extremely, extremely limited globally across all cultures and all societies. So if you are so fucking worried about an immigration crisis or another refugee crisis, maybe don't support the genocidal maniacs and regurgitate their propaganda 24/7 and elect their representatives. Just a thought. The Western powers keep creating situations that produce refugees, and then they complain about refugees. That is exactly correct.
As well as, of course, some economic agenda merely for Egypt, where the economy is not so doing well.
The EU says it's ready to deploy a civilian border mission to Gaza's Rafah crossing, train a Palestinian police force, and deliver humanitarian aid.
Because we have a unique expertise for the...
Yeah, and then the Palestinian police force is going to be declared Hamas. And then the shit starts all over again.
After in Gaza, and we are ready to activate all our instruments in our wide toolbox to support the implementation of the deal on a wide range of issues.
Egyptian exports to the European market are a crucial financial lifeline for an economy trying to recover from years of recession. Last year, the IMF helped bail out the Egyptian economy in exchange for major economic reforms. In Brussels, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi sees the chance for a long-term partnership that benefits Egypt.
More neoliberalism.
For now, Gaza will be the most important issue that will bring the EU and Egypt to put together the stabilization.
The third way for Asia. Hello. Welcome to the stream. We are covering not so happy topics today. But, well, just stick around.
Force, which is going to have a bigger say in the post-war transition. They hope to have an elected authority in the near future, so the EU, the US and major donors can start the mammoth task of rebuilding Gaza, which will take years and require billions of dollars. Hashim Al Jazeera.
Yeah, and the only reason why you need to rebuild Palestine and Gaza is because Israel literally bombed it so heavily that it is rubble. And again, Europe funded it, America funded it, Australia funded it, Canada funded it, continue to fund it. And yet we constantly talk about these things in the reporting as if these are not related situations at all. Like Israel in a fucking... Oh. My bad. Sorry, Ruben. I forgot that you changed your name to that. Good thing we have Anna here because she has the memory of an elephant, and I mean that as a high praise. Please don't get mad at me. But the point being about, you know, the way people are reporting about needing to rebuild Gaza, about needing to establish a real government, how other countries are being, you know, forced by the nose to adhere to IMF, which is enforcing neoliberal economic policies, which have led to the essentially becoming colonies of the EU and the IMF, and then losing sovereignty and actual support and so on and so forth. Like, the disingenuous reporting about this circumstance is really infuriating, considering it is Al Jazeera, which is allegedly it's supposed to be one of the most outspoken news outlets globally, who have lost dozens of reporters and journalists to Israeli hellfire and genocidal acts. It's just extremely disappointing. Yeah, thanks, Anna. Well, let me just get canceled before we even get anywhere. I just learned that conservatives don't exist in America. What kind of conservatives betray their own monarchy? I guess so. Yeah, that's something. When we did the video on JD, did we actually... I think we just talked shit for the most part. It's all good. Oh, here we go.
Starved and displaced with entire cities lying in ruins. That's been the daily reality for Palestinians across the Gaza Strip for more than 2 years. But despite everything, people are determined to survive as they desperately try to find food and shelter. This is dawn in Gaza City, the morning light illuminating a landscape of debris and rubble hiding the remains of many who were killed in Israel's attacks. The United Nations reports that Israeli attacks have destroyed more than 80% of the buildings across Gaza. A limited number of tents are now trickling in, but it's nowhere near enough to meet the desperate needs of the people. Gaza's landscape has been completely changed. More than 300,000 houses have been reduced to rubble by Israeli attacks and demolition. Most of the strip's water and sanitation facilities have been destroyed, leaving 96% of households without enough water to meet even basic needs. And nearly 3,500 kilometers of Gaza's roads have been damaged or entirely torn up. They are vital routes for the distribution of humanitarian aid and supplies.
And Israel is the group that is allegedly acting in self-defense when they have literally razed an entire people's land, an entire swath, thousands of kilometers of road, 300,000 homes, and just devastated all of the infrastructure that went to them. And somehow Israel is still being portrayed as the good guys, as acting in self-defense. At least she is reporting on those brass tacks. So maybe we just need to keep an eye out for her and watch her videos. But that's depressing as shit, and we are closing up on our last 20 minutes. So, hopefully that the narrative does change. It will change immediately upon my arrival in the Oval Office, but that's 4 years away. It looks like we have a couple of shorts.
So for the end goal, the actual establishment of a Palestinian state living side by side with a secure Israel, to get that, you're going to have to keep up the pressure on the Israeli government. Justin Trudeau said that Canada would honor the International Criminal Court arrest warrants, i.e. Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to Canada. Does that stand under your leadership?
Yes.
You'd be prepared to do that?
Yes.
Wow. A politician that just answered a question.
We believe that Prime Minister Carney should, of course, reconsider this.
Talk about a very low fucking bar, though, right? But at least they are straight up saying, yes, we will get the bastard.
Welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu, the leader of the only Jewish state and democratic country here in the Middle East, to Canada.
Okay, well, we're not gonna listen to Israeli propaganda. We're definitely not gonna do that. But it is crazy that they continue to try and say that we're Jewish and that we're the only Jewish state in the Middle East and that we're allies and friends and this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, they are brazenly committing acts of genocide on national television and then wondering why anti-Semitism is on the rise. But we've already discussed this. That is part of Israeli propaganda. They know what they are doing is wrong. They know what they are doing is evil. And they know that the only way that they can get away with it is by claiming that they are Jewish and victims from the Holocaust, so we can do no wrong. And that's what makes it even worse, because it is part of their propaganda strategy. This right here is part of the propaganda strategy.
When truth becomes a crime, freedom dies. German author and politician Jürgen Todenhofer, a fierce critic of Israel.
Jürgen Todenhofer. What a guy. First of all, that's not how you say it. It's Totenhofer. But also, just how badly that was pronounced.
Israel's Gaza war has had his home raided by police after condemning Netanyahu's genocide in Gaza. Authorities confiscated his phones and computers, accusing him of violating speech laws after he compared Israel's actions to Nazi atrocities. Todenhofer.
That's exactly what they are, though. And in many cases worse, because I don't recall the Nazis using the Jewish captives as human shields on the war front. I literally don't recall that happening at all. Yeah, there were the death camps. That was terrible, 100%. But they weren't they were killing them. They weren't torturing them and keeping them alive out of spite. They were straight up killing them. Terrible, but in some, when you have to argue the nuances of morality and ethics in slaughter and genocide, and Israel keeps being the winner of being unethical and immoral and just heinous and cruel and violent, yeah, comparing them to Nazis is not only accurate, but kind of makes the Nazis not look as bad, which is a terrible, horrible truth, considering the Nazis are dead, allegedly, and Israelis are doing this in real time, in 4K, on social media. So, they're arresting this guy for telling it how it is? Yeah, that's fucking scary, Germany.
Called it a frontal attack on free expression, vowing to continue speaking for Palestine, even if it means prison. I will not be silent while Gaza suffocates, he declared. A recent poll shows 62% of Germans believe Israel's actions amount to genocide. Yet critics, not war criminals, are being punished.
Exactly. Exactly. Cannot stress that enough. The population agrees. What Israel is doing is genocide. Overwhelmingly. Well, maybe not overwhelmingly, but certainly in a majority. And the people who are being punished are critics that the people agree with. But Germany is not slipping towards fascism again. Now, this is CBS Morning News. These are not hard-hitting journalists by any stretch of the imagination. But here's my fortune telling, my prophecy, I guess. They're not going to mention that this lady, the Japanese first PM, they're not going to mention that she is an extremely right-wing individual. That's my first prophecy here. And the second is that they're going to focus primarily on the fact that she's a woman. Let's see if I'm right.
Out of this, Japan's parliament this morning elected the country's first female prime minister. 64-year-old conservative Sanae Takaichi is known as Japan's Iron Lady. Takaichi secured a majority in both the lower and upper houses of parliament, ending 3 months of political uncertainty. CBS News foreign correspondent Anna Corrin is following this for us and joins us from Hong Kong with more. Good morning, Anna. So tell us about Takaichi and how she's expected to lead now.
Well, Takaichi, she has shattered the glass ceiling in Japan, Errol, after winning that parliamentary vote today in what had become a rather drawn-out process. Now, what got across the line was that her ruling Liberal Democratic Party formed a new coalition with Japan Innovation Party. As you say, she's 64 years old, a conservative nationalist. She's a protege of former Prime Minister Shinzo.
She just said conservative nationalist. It just rolled off the tongue and didn't miss a beat. As I said that they would do. I called it, didn't I? I fucking called it that they were gonna do the job of sanitizing this lady for them. Also, how are you gonna have a liberal Democratic Party and be a national conservative? None of those words go together. None of those words go together. So I'm very, very fucking curious how this continues out.
Abe, who, as you may remember, was assassinated in 2022, she is expected to lead Japan to the right. Now, she's already selected her cabinet and has appointed a woman to be her finance minister, another first for Japanese politics. What we are witnessing, really, is a major shift in the political landscape in what has always been a very male-dominated society. The Prime Minister...
Speaking of the boomers in charge, the average age in that room is probably 64. Like, you have an aging population that is becoming more and more entrenched in its own ideology and self-preservation for its own generation, while the youth continue to suffer and decline. And then conservatism somehow can... I really don't understand the appeal of conservatism. Mind you, this is coming from a guy who, up until actually researched what a Democrat and a Republican and what liberal and conservative meant, thought he was a conservative because supporting the American people, providing for their basic needs such as healthcare, education, housing, infrastructure, food, shelter, clothing, and providing for the funding to expand those things in the United States made me a conservative. I thought I was a Republican because I held those ideas. Right? So that was obviously me being a liberal. But not just a liberal, a leftist. Never a liberal, a leftist. Like communist, socialist, leftist. But I didn't know that at the time until I started researching it. And then when I found out, I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. What do conservatives stand for? And it's regression. It's It's gutting social programs. It's discrimination. It's racism. It's nationalism. It's Christo-fascism. It's all these other things that have brought the harm that we are currently living with. That's what conservatives want to bring more of. So the ideology that has made millions of people suffer in these United States are the same policies and ideals that people think are going to fix the country. And that conservative ideology is the same no matter where it takes up in the world. It's always what's the stupid word? Why is my brain not coming up with the words today? Austerity. It's always austerity measures. It's always smaller government, tax breaks for the rich, deregulation of industry, and that's going to make Japan, China, well, I guess China hasn't quite gone there yet. That's going to make Japan, South Korea, Germany, Canada, Mexico, America better again, right? Blank again. And that's what I'm not understanding, because every time socialism wins, and every time socialism has the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary working together to solve problems, people thrive. But then they become complacent and are fed lies that, hey, your life could be better if you had more money, and if we did this, we could give you more money. And people are like, well, sure, I want more money, I want better life. And then it ends up, in order to do that, we got to cut your healthcare, your education, and all the benefits that have given you a good life to begin with. So I don't understand. I do not understand how conservatism continues to win. Probably because it's better funded than leftism, but that just kind of goes to show that money in politics is the absolute core of evil that is allowing fascism to rise.
Errol comes from humble beginnings, and like many other political elite in Japan. An interesting fact about her, she was a heavy metal drummer, rode a motorbike in her youth, and I believe that Iron Maiden
so she's a fucking
is one
poser.
of her favourite bands.
She's a fucking sellout. She was a heavy metal rebel against the cause, and then turned into the person that wears the boots that other people lick. That's fucked. What a poser.
Margaret Thatcher, Britain's first female Prime Minister, is one of her heroes, and she has proven that perseverance pays off. She secured the leadership of her party earlier this month, and that was after her third term.
This lady is euphorically describing this Japanese PM while stating that the Japanese PM's idol was Margaret fucking Thatcher, one of the most universally hated politicians in the UK, arguably globally, with this grin on her face, as if it was a good thing, because Margaret Thatcher was a woman. I don't even know. Like, this is the most insidious type of propaganda, where you have a woman talking about a fascist who idolizes another fascist, but is talking about it as if this is a step in the right direction for women generally. That is propaganda. This is propaganda. Good grief. Enough of that, I guess. I mean, I was definitely not thrilled with the first 45 seconds of her talking, or minute, I guess. Minute and 15 seconds, but Christ. You're going to sit here and applaud Margaret fucking Al Jazeera's was worse about the Japanese Prime Minister? Are you fucking serious? Oh my god. So, all right. We're going to wrap this up with 2 videos. The first video is that Hind Rajab, there is an investigation going into the people that killed her, and that the Israelis are going to be held accountable by the ICC. So that is great. Oh no. If this audio is of her getting killed, then we're not playing this. We're not going to play that. But suffice to say, just based on the title, there is accountability finally happening for her murder. So we're going to end the stream on a higher note. We're going to do, I guess it'll be BBC this time. Eye implant helps blind patients read again.
Now to some good news, because for the first time blind patients have been able
it's now to some good news.
Able to read again thanks to a microchip implanted at the back of the eye. A surgeon at Moorfields Eye Hospital in London, who led the pioneering treatment, says the results are, quote, astounding. Our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, has been to meet Sheila, who says the treatment has changed her life.
Sheila Irwin began losing her sight more than 30 years ago and is registered blind. This is what her world looks like due to a condition called dry age-related macular degeneration.
I'm not going to lie. My vision's pretty bad. The blurriness that we just saw, minus the black cloud in front, that is how bad my vision is, up to like right here is when shit gets blurry. And then there, forget about it. Like, I can't even see myself on the screen. I can't see the YouTube video. But that black darkness in your eyes, I've only had that happen once to me when I was having an ocular migraine. And I also thought I was having a stroke at the time because the ocular migraine actually gave me stroke-like symptoms, and I didn't recognize them as such because, well, I've never had an ocular migraine. So, scary to experience this for one, but to live with it for two, even scarier, which makes the fact that there are now eye implants that can fix it all the more great.
Age-related macular degeneration, or AMD.
Is it left now? Yeah, it says no, innit? That's it, yeah.
But everything changes when Sheila, who's 70, puts on these special glasses.
They docked at Vine Tour.
She can read again.
Next day.
For the first time in years. So how is this possible?
Well, how is that an implant?
This tiny microchip, as thin as a human hair, was implanted under Sheila's retina. Here you can see it in position at the back of her eye.
For company.
A camera in the glasses sends a video feed via infrared beam to the chip, which is enhanced by computer. The images on the left are the camera output. Those on the right are what Sheila sees.
Tin of tar paint.
I mean...
Out this world. Amazing.
Okay. Not quite what I was expecting from this video when it said eye implant helps blind patients read again. But you know what? We're not going to knock it because we've had some very depressing news today. That is actually really cool. And in fact, that reminds me of Star Trek, was it 7 of 8? Or is that Deep Space Nine? 7 of 9, sorry. That reminds me of this eye implant And then also Star Trek characters with eye implants or visors. This guy. Gordy. But of course the Reading Rainbow hero. It kind of reminded me of that because, I mean, one, it is going over her eye, and then there's the camera there. So it's getting closer to Star Trek stuff. That's kind of cool. George LaForge, sorry. LaForge. No, wait. LeVar Burton. That's what I meant. Sorry. LeVar Burton's character. Again, brain fart. We are getting closer and closer to Star Trek technologies, except we are getting further and further from Star Trek social ethos. So, that is a much happier note to end on, though. And I am very pleased with that. So, we will end the stream thusly. Thank you all for joining us and participating in the stream with me. It's always a pleasure to have you with me on stream. The more we watch, the more we grow, the more we can push back against fascism by building an actual platform and an actual network that can be used to fight back against this oppressive nightmare, right? So tomorrow, I welcome you back at 7 p.m. We're going to do Recap Thursdays. We're going to cover any myriad number of topics that we may have missed or that may have occurred since we did Tuesday or Wednesday specific streams. Of course, there's always more things to cover. There's always another topic, right? So, I wish you all a great night. I will see you tomorrow. Like, share, subscribe. Let your friends, family, neighbors know. And I will see you tomorrow. President Ronan, out.